Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live video. It's Black Friday. It's November the 28th, 2025. It's the big shopping day here in the United States, the day after Thanksgiving. And it's the kickoff of the holiday shopping season as we approach the Christmas and Hanukkah and all the other gift-giving time of year that happens in December. And this is where it all starts, right here officially today. And of course, then they have the following Cyber Monday. Now, Cyber Monday is dedicated to specials that occur online only. And every retailer in the United States is running a Black Friday special. Even restaurants are offering gift cards with bonus, spend $100 to get a gift card, get an extra $20 gift card to give away as a gift, that kind of thing, or to keep for yourself. And it's no surprise that in the computer industry, this is a big deal because a lot of people wait all year for the specials, whether we're talking about a new computer or components. Today, we're going to focus on our good friends over at Minisforum and their specials they've got going on today, because the outlook for computer pricing moving forward doesn't look good. It appears RAM prices have gone up by double in the last 45, 60 days. And from what I've read, the experts say this doesn't look like it's going to get better within our period of projection, and we expect it will get worse. So the deals I'm about to share with you today are more than likely going to look even more appealing in 3 months. So if you are hemming and hawing and you're not quite sure if you want to pull the trigger on a new purchase, and you wait, from the information I have, things may start to get more expensive and then more expensive and then more expensive. There's really no projection at this time, from my knowledge, when the price of RAM and solid state drives will start coming back down. It's just going up right now, and it's only just starting. So keep that in mind as I share with you some of these prices, because they've already had to adjust some pricing as a result, and that's every manufacturer that uses RAM. It doesn't matter if it's a smartphone, a tablet, a mini PC, even a car. If it's got RAM in it, it's adding to the cost. So that's how it is. Nobody's exempt from it. And so when you're looking at the Black Friday specials, I want make a note of the prices and then compare the prices in January, February, March, because you might realize you wish you had those prices then if everything I'm reading holds out to be true. It's not what I want. Don't misunderstand me. I just want to be prepared for it, and I want you to be prepared for it. Welcome in, everyone, because today we're going to go over specifically our friends at Minisforum, and there's a couple reasons why we're focusing on Minisforum today. One, they asked me to. But more important than that, and the reason why I said yes, is because they have so much variety to pick from. They build quality products, and we've reviewed a lot more Minisforum products than anybody else. They've been very supportive. They've been a pleasure to work with, and they've been popping my eyes out of my skull when I keep seeing all of their innovation. They're not just coming out with the same old generic boxes that other mini PC makers do. They have their own unique designs that, so far as I can tell, many of which have no competitor. So on the desk in front of me, I grabbed a random sampling of some of my favorites. However, asking me to pick a favorite is like asking me to pick a favorite tool. If I have this pair of scissors, I like this pair of scissors, but it doesn't do me much good to take out a screw, which is why I like this screwdriver, but that doesn't help me open boxes, which is why I like this blade. And that doesn't help me remove fine things like these miniature needle nose pliers do. So when somebody asks me, say, what's your favorite tool, I gotta say, well, to do what job? I don't just have one tool that's my favorite. And every one of the computers that Minisforum sells are like tools. So if you say, well, which of the Minisforum computers do you like the best? Depends on how much you want to spend and how much computing power you want. So for example, for me as a content creator, these are some of my favorites. currently, and there's other favorites we don't have yet that just got announced. The Minisforum, we're just trying to keep up with them, whether it's the release of their NAS or the release of the new Atom Man gaming PC, which is, they just announced that, which is really exciting, especially when you look at the prices for the projected prices for the upcoming Steam, and look at the flatness of like the Xbox with really nothing exciting happening there. Suddenly now, an affordable gaming PC where you're not pulling out your hair trying to get a graphics card and all the other issues that have been problems in the gaming community can all be resolved in a small, affordable package that's fully capable of a desktop gaming PC. And hopefully we'll get one in, but they just released it. We're going to look at that. But also, the machines I've got in front of me represent some of the machines that somebody who's into content creation or likes a lot of power has variety of choosing from. So for example, up here, the AI X1 Pro, which kind of looks like a Mac Mini clone, but just wipes the floor with it, and it's very quiet. Over here on the end, this one is the MSA2. This is an AMD workstation. This is the Intel workstation. I'm more of an Intel guy myself, but essentially the same package with a Intel versus AMD, basically. This is the AMD AI workstation that Mars been using, the S1 Max, which is single-handedly the most powerful computer from Minisforum for content creators that I've ever experienced. And today we're going to look at a new offering from Minisforum. They sent us the MS-R1. So imagine if this is Intel and if this is AMD, and otherwise they look the same from the outside. They have different features and pricing and but basically the same shell. Somebody might say, well, what about an ARM-based processor? Well, Minisforum just came out with it. Now, who's it for? Well, that's a good question, because the reason why somebody might want an ARM-based CPU instead of Intel or AMD is because they want a less expensive computer. They want a computer that uses less power. This would be for things that you don't necessarily need a powerhouse for things like Proxmox. Running Linux, for example, is always what you hear online all the time is how little Linux needs to run as far as CPU and RAM. However, up until recently, there was no such thing as a version of Windows that was built for ARM. And last year, I think it was last year, Microsoft finally came out with an ARM version of Windows. So it looks and acts just like any other version of Windows, but it specifically speaks the language of the ARM processor. Otherwise, the ARM processor, it has to do some language translation from the x86 code used on Intel and AMD. And the perception that an end user may have is that the computer feels slower because it has to do this additional translation. But if you can optimize your code and write it in a language the ARM processor understands, you don't need as much power as you do on Intel and AMD to achieve the same or better performance results. It's a far more efficient processor. So for me personally, the ARM processors are a really unique solution out there for individuals, but I don't think they're not as widely understood, and they haven't yet gained a strong foothold in the marketplace. People who know what they are, and the people who don't know what they are probably don't buy them. However, if you want a lot of computer for the money, then you also want to be sure that you're not going to be consuming a lot of electricity. You want it to be very efficient, quiet. You definitely want an ARM-based processor for your best bang for the buck, assuming the software you want to run, if it's anything special, has a version written for ARM. Some software, I think like big high-end software, like maybe Adobe Premiere, things like that, some big, massive, heavy-duty programs may not run on an ARM-based processor. And if they do run without being optimized for it, it might seem painful and slow. If you're a home lab enthusiast, if you're somebody that likes to have Proxmox or Linux or have your own sort of, well, for lack of a better word, a home lab. This gets very affordable and opens up a lot of opportunity for experimentation and creating your own unique solutions if you're of that technical mindset. But if you're not of the technical mindset, it could still be, just for the price alone, a great value, where if you're just using a computer for typical reasons, you wouldn't know the difference other than in your wallet. So you can see that's still shrink wrapped. We're going to open this up today and we're going to review it. But first, let me say hello and welcome to everybody. I hope you all had a great, wonderful Thanksgiving if you're here in the United States, and hope you had a great, wonderful Thursday everywhere else in the world. We got a message from our friend Mitch that I want to play with you. Mitch snuck out of the country for the holidays. And where in the world is he? Does anybody want to guess? Let me find his video here. I forgot to set this up before the show. That's okay. It's a nice, relaxing Black Friday, and we're going to get to these deals here real soon. Hello, Mara.
You got email.
I've got mail? Somebody wrote to me?
They did.
Let me go to, let's see, one thing at a time. I've got a bunch of things I want to share with you today, and I don't want to just spill it all out there. We're going to try and ration it out. But first, there he is. Let's hear from our friend Mitch. Give me just 1 second to set this up. Okay, now I'm ready to play it. So you get the look behind the scenes, how we set things up. Let me mute my microphone so you can hear Mitch talk.
Hi, Uncle Carey and everyone in chat. It's your Uncle Mitch. Yes, I am alive. Coming to you from Seoul, South Korea. Right now I'm on the Sky Tower. It's a bridge between two buildings that I'm walking on, very high. But I'm happy to be here, and hopefully in December, Uncle Carey will have me on the show, and I'll tell you all about my world adventures. I'm here for 5 days, and next stop, Hong Kong. So everybody have a very nice Thanksgiving. Bye.
And there you go. Did anybody have Seoul, South Korea on their playlist? Mitch is in Seoul, South Korea right now, and he's apparently very cold. He's never been there before, and then his next stop will be Hong Kong, and hopefully we'll get a video or two while he's on his trip. And we wish him the best, and we'll look forward to hearing the stories. I also want to shout out a huge thank you to a viewer named Thomas Krukella. He has contributed a very generous contribution to the channel, and I wanted to just give him a special shout out and say thank you for his generous support over the years. I had no idea this was coming. I was over at Studio A. I saw there was a letter waiting for me that had been waiting for a couple weeks, and then it was a very generous contribution to our channel to help support what we're doing here. So Thomas, if you're watching, thank you so much, and we just blown away by the generosity of this community, and specifically Thomas. Of course, our friend Buster, who also sends us an Amazon gift card as always during our live shows. Thank you to Buster for all of your support and kindness. And Buster sent us some gifts earlier last week for Mara and myself. Again, unexpected, and it's just very, I don't know the word for it. There's an emotion pushing it away. There's so much kindness and so much generosity, and I thank each and every one of you, especially our members here, everybody you see in green in our chat room. And let's not leave out our friends at Minisforum, because quite frankly, if Minisforum didn't meet my requirements for quality, price, and support, there wouldn't be enough money in the world. Well, I suppose there could be. But there's a reason why we're going to focus on Minisforum today. It's not that other manufacturers are less than. It's that Minisforum has the most variety. They're the one we have the most experience with. And they're also having a Black Friday special where some manufacturers work with us, and then, you know, it's kind of piecemeal. Minisforum's been working with us consistently for years now, and they've been absolutely solid on every aspect of relationship, from the products to their specials. The fact that they offer bare bones versions of the machines they sell, which right now may not seem like such a good deal, but a bare bones system would be one that you put your own solid state drive in your own memory in your own operating system, which could be beneficial if you wanted to save money. These days, it might be cheaper to just go ahead and get the machine with the RAM you want already in there for what happens with RAM prices right now and what's going to be happening. So just a heads up for awareness. So what about the specials? Let's talk about the Black Friday specials. In the links below today's video, Mara has added the Minisforum Black Friday specials page, and let's go there and take a look at it together. Now, I've not studied this. I'm going to be looking at it and reacting to it in a genuine, like, this is the first time I'm looking at it, and I do that on purpose so you get a real reaction. Okay, price up to 38% off, lowest prices of 2025, and they've been running this Black Friday special now for 2 weeks. They started this back on November 14th, and we did tell you about it, but we didn't get into any details. So today, this is going to be your last day to take advantage of these prices, and they will probably be running specials for Cyber Monday, I would guess. I don't know how different they'll be or what inventory levels look like, but as you can see here, they do show this goes on through November 30th, and up here it says November 28th, so I'm not quite sure. And then, yeah, Cyber Monday, they say December 1st and December 2nd. Okay, so what are the deals? All right, so right now they're talking about, they've got referral bonuses and spotlight sales. So the spotlight sales, these are things that'll come and go. You've got to kind of watch for them. An extra 5% off, a free gift. If you buy a product, you can get this other product for half price. These are some examples of what they're offering. They're saying that these deals are good until the 30th. I don't know why it says the 28th up here. I'm going to assume that that's an oversight and that this isn't the last day. According to this, you have 3 days and 19 hours, provided inventory still exists. So let's see some examples of what they're offering. Many of these we've had here on the channel, so if you want to go back to the channel and look at our reviews of these before you purchase, before you make a decision, I'd certainly encourage you to do so. Minisforum UM890 Pro, normally $579. It's $433.90. That's going to be bare bone, and that's a Ryzen 9 8945 HS. So that's a pretty high-end machine, and it has some of that traditional mini PC cube look to it. Also, the UM680, which is a not as high-end performance. Again, bare bones. You're looking at a Ryzen 7, which is one step below that Ryzen 9 8945, rating 8745, and about $150 cheaper. Now, the MSA2 that I have here on the bench, that's that AMD Workstation. Again, if we want to get the lowest prices, you buy it bare bones and put your own RAM and storage in there. If you don't already have a deal on RAM and storage, or you don't already have extra RAM and storage laying around, then the cheapest price will probably be to buy it with RAM, unless you find RAM and storage at a really good Black Friday special. So bear that in mind. It could be cheaper for you to buy this with the RAM and storage already in it because of what's happening with RAM and SSD prices. So the MSA2, which is your AMD version of a workstation. The AI X1 Pro, that's also, boy, I picked some good ones out here on the bench. That's also Like I said, one of the highest end mini PCs we've ever used. It has a very much Macintosh look to it. This sort of chrome aluminum finish. Not chrome, it's like a metal aluminum finish. And it's running the AI9 HX370 CPU. If you price that CPU out, which is mobile only, that's a chip that you and I can't buy. You have to be a manufacturer because it needs to be soldered onto a motherboard. If you price that out, it's well, I'll just I'll let you look it up, because just that chip alone is more than half of the price they're asking for this computer. So this is a really good value. It already has 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte drive in it. And there's an extra 3% off if you order over $1,500, 5% off any order over $2,500. And then we have these other models of computers, such as the MS-R1 Max, which is the AI Max Plus 395. That's the highest end AMD mobile processor on the market right now, and it's also the most expensive. So you can get that with 128 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of solid state storage. That's a pretty high-end workstation for $2,559. It sounds like a lot of money, but that's easily a $3,500, $4,000 desktop and equivalent components. The Minisforum N5 Pro is basically one of these workstations. It's basically like the, I would say, it's kind of like, I'm looking for the model. Think of it like this computer here, but with a mobile chip. This computer actually uses a desktop Ryzen 9. So imagine this with a mobile chip, one of the AMD AI chips, like, where did it go? If you've missed my review of the NAS, the Minisforum N5 Pro, this is a workstation at the bottom of it, and it just has 5 drive bays above it. So this comes with Windows already installed, and it has a flash drive or eMMC memory. I think it's eMMC. So you can dual boot to either the NAS software that Minisforum provides, which is still under development, but you can replace it with TrueNAS or Unraid. We put Zima OS on it. They're still working on their operating system for the NAS portion of this, or you can use it as a high-end Windows workstation and also use it as a NAS just using Windows Share. You can create a RAID array in Windows and just boot it to Windows if you want to do that. Let me get back up to the top again, because now I've lost my place. Where was I? I was up here. All right, so we have the MS-R1. This is the little workstation I keep going back to. And that price is the lowest I've ever seen it. Now granted, that's bare bones, again, your own operating system, your own SSD, your own RAM. And actually that's an i5, and the version I have, I think, is an i9. And it looks like those are sold out. So bear in mind, I'm glad I noticed this, they have different variations or different flavors of some of these machines. Like the N5 Pro versus the N5 is a cheaper version. If this is a little rich for your blood here, I mean, it's a high-end workstation with a NAS combined into one unit. There are options that can bring the price down. And I see a lot of these are shaded out. They're either already sold out, but they do have the N5 version, which is a step lower than this at about half the price, if that's more your speed. The MS-R1, and again, this is a Ryzen 9 9950X3D desktop processor in barebone format, $1,039.90. Remember, this isn't showing the final discounted price. You have to add it to your cart, depending on your total, right? Depends which discount applies, and then if there's any freebies or anything that come along with it. So they're having a little fun with this. The M1 Pro, the 125H, we reviewed that here. That's using the Ultra processor. And you'll notice it'll say an extra $80 off up here too. This one's an extra $30 off. You're looking at around $350 after that discount. Bare bones, And here they offer it with 32 gig and 1 terabyte for $575. And again, you still have the $30 off. The UM760 Slim, more of a slimmer design, but again, more of a traditional cube-shaped mini PC at $407.90 with 16 gigs and 1 terabyte. These are all going to have Windows installed. The BD795M is basically what if you wanted to build your own little mini workstation yourself, mini ITX or micro ATX. This one is a micro ATX, so you just use your own power supply, your own case. The only difference is the CPU is a mobile CPU that's soldered onto the board and you can't switch it. And a lot of times they'll use laptop memory instead of desktop memory. And you get a much better value for the dollar getting something like this versus buying the board and buying the CPU and buying all the separate components. But you're not necessarily sacrificing any power, just thinking smarter. This is the Minisforum, the 795S7, which they also make a variant as the 129i7 and 790S7. So 790 and 795, if those numbers look alike to you, depending on how they're equipped, right? 2 of them are AMD, 1 of them is an Intel. Obviously, the 129 is going to be the Intel. And the difference between the 795 and the 790 is the model of CPU. So Ryzen 9 7945 versus 7940, hence the 790 and 795 there. And it does look like those versions are sold out. But this would be if you wanted like a mini ITX already built that you have the ability to add a small graphics card like a 4060 or something that can fit in a mini ITX case, and you're good to go for gaming. The work's already done. Now at this price, you're going to also have to provide your own RAM and storage, right? Because that's a hell of a deal. Not only that, it's also saying 33% off, extra $50 off. I mean, some of these prices, I'm a little floored by them. Minisforum is selling this brand Aberz. We did feature Aberz, and apart from the fact that it doesn't say Minisforum on top, it appears to be a Minisforum computer with the same build quality. And again, when you get with these lesser known brands, they're usually priced a little more aggressively just because people might have a little anxiety about an unfamiliar name. But when you know Minisforum's behind it, that should give you all the confidence you need, because this is a Ryzen AI 9 HX370. So again, we're 1 tier below the 395. Pretty high-end workstation with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte. This thing probably smokes and leaves in the dust most people's home computers in general. And yet a fraction of the size, a fraction of the noise, a fraction of the cost, and far, far faster. You really have to experience these to appreciate. You know, when you get into the high-end ones like this, and you say it's $800, there's an extra $30 off. This is easily, you know, $1,300 to $1,500 equivalent in desktop if you tried to build that. That's how much savings there can be. Not to mention, because it's mobile components, they use less power and they don't take up as much space on the desk. You don't have to worry about blowing all the dust and dirt out of them as often or near as much kind of dust and dirt collection that occurs on a desktop tower. It's just all win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. The UM790 Pro, look, this is an old favorite here on the channel and very affordable at $375. You're looking at a Ryzen 9. So AMD makes a Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then within those families, they have generations. What we're looking at right here is the highest end of a previous generation, but it's not that old. At $375 to go flagship level, again, you're going to have to provide your own RAM or storage at that price. If you want to add RAM and storage, you can see just how much that bumps that price up. And I want to remind you, that's everybody. Anybody who builds computers. And if you want to go and price out RAM yourself, you might find out this is actually cheaper to go this way than to provide it yourself, unless you already have it or you found one hell of a deal. Now, Minisforum also makes a few other things. And we don't focus much on them, but we have shown many of these things on the channel, such as their tablet 3-in-1 laptop. This thing functions as a laptop. It functions as a tablet, so the keyboard's detachable. It also functions as a monitor. So if you wanted to plug this into your desktop of a second or third monitor, or even plug it into another laptop as a second monitor, it does all three functions. And again, we're looking at a pretty high-end system. It's a Ryzen 7 7735 with 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage. Plus, you're going to save $50 if you purchase it as a bundle at $639. You know, compare that to an equivalent laptop. Over here, we have a Thunderbolt 4 docking station. Now, I personally have no use for this. However, many people like the ability of taking something like a laptop, taking it on the road, and when they get home or back to the office, they can have their monitor and accessories left plugged into this dock on their desk. And so all you do is plug the Thunderbolt cable from the dock into your laptop, and now your external monitor, speakers, keyboard, mouse, backup drives, you don't have to plug all that in. Think of it as just this, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It's like an appendage that you can disconnect and attach. And this is particularly useful for people that have laptops. And it's also particularly useful for people who have desktops and want a lot of accessories, because often the desktop won't give them enough ports to plug in everything. They're your power users. We keep scrolling down. We have another motherboard here that you would build your own system with, but this one already has the heatsink, the CPU. On there, you have to provide your own cooling fan. The BD790i, we have showcased this on the channel in the past. If you want to see our review of it, you'll have to provide your own case, power supply, RAM and storage, and operating system. But again, we're talking about a pretty high-end machine. And at $511, this is I think there's an additional discount, another $50 off if purchased as a bundle. If you're into building your own, this is the way to start considering options versus the old buying the CPU and the motherboard and the RAM and all that other stuff, but putting it all together piece by piece. There's better value when this is all pre-assembled like this. So you still have to build it. You still have to buy other accessories, you know, the case, power supply, RAM, storage. But you end up with a system that's probably a lot more reliable, a lot more power efficient, and saves you some money. The AI X1 Pro, you know, absolutely one of my favorites. We've already talked about this. As a content creator, this thing's got everything. Whether it's multi-display, Wi-Fi 7, dual LAN, it's got it all. So for me personally, there's a reason why these individual units I put on the desk are here. And it's because of my particular use case scenario. The other units are fantastic. I don't have really a negative thing to say about any of them. It's just difficult for me to, first of all, the desk isn't that big to put everything up here, but it's difficult for me to talk about how I would use that when I have these, which are far more capable than those smaller, cheaper units. So it depends who it's for. Now, I have deployed many of the smaller, cheaper Minisforum units to my clients in business offices. They love them. Never once has a client called me with a problem with one, and never once has a client said, hey, this isn't as good as my old desktop. Give me the old desktop back. That's never happened. And one of the reasons I put Minisforum on site at the clients is because I have enough experience with this company that I can put my reputation behind it. I need to know when I'm providing my customers with solutions that that solution is going to cover me. If there is any problem, the customer, honestly, they don't care if it says Minisforum or what it says on it. They care, can you solve this problem? For how much money? And do we get the same kind of support that we get when we buy from Carey? Now, when I'm building it myself, I'm fully responsible for the outcome of that project. But when I'm trusting a manufacturer to build it on my behalf, that I'm turning around and representing to my client as my product, in other words, I'm saying this is what I'm recommending for you, that client is going to call me if they have any problems, no differently than they would call me if they had any problems with anything else I sold them. So I'm not just going to take anybody's mini computer and then recommend it to my client, because If my client has a bad experience with it, that right there dings against me. Start losing customer confidence. Then when I go to solve it for the customer, if I can't get the help from the manufacturer, I end up having to buy the client a whole new computer or potentially losing the client. That's my responsibility. It comes with the sale with regard to a warranty period. And I can't stay in business and keep buying computers for customers because I didn't pick a good one. And it's really hard to regain customer confidence back. It's just a losing scenario. So I want to choose a manufacturer that's reliable, affordable, and also, should there be a problem, that I know I'm not going to get left, holding the bag, as it will, and being thrown under a bus. So I'm very, very cautious and protective of my clients and my business because I don't want to go out of business. And I want the same clients to keep coming back. I don't want to have to keep getting new clients and burning bridges until I run out of bridges. I don't want to work that hard. So for many of my clients, these smaller, typical cube-shaped machines, they're far more power than what they had. They're happy to get rid of that big bulky workstation that was under the desk, that tower. And when they see the price, they're like, "Is that right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's all it costs." I'm happy to deliver it because it's a lot lighter. Just put it in the car. When I put a big tower in the car, especially like in the trunk, it can slide around back there and bang up the inside of the trunk. It can scratch up the computer. It's both hands to pick it up and try and open the door and carry it in, get under the desk and wire it all up. These mini PCs make my life so much easier. I can put it on the chair next to me or put it on the floor behind the seat, drive it over, and I can put multiples in there, right? Drive it over to the clients, put it on the desk, not under the desk. But we could also mount it behind the monitor. We can hang it off the wall. It's costing the customer hundreds of dollars less than if I built it. It's taking up less room, it's using less power, and it's a big upgrade for them as far as like when they click on something and something happens. It's just very snappy. They're quiet. What's not to like? I still have some clients that's like, "Well, where's my optical drive? What if I want to read a DVD drive?" I mean, you can go and get external DVD drives that plug in via USB. But for the most part, when's the last time you've ever installed any software off a CD or a DVD? That hasn't been done in years and years and years. On occasion, though, there's often an occasion where somebody needs a CD, DVD, or Blu-ray drive. Go on Amazon and buy one that's external USB. Plug it into any of these mini PCs right through USB. You could get a floppy drive that way too if you still use those. Every once in a while, I still have a client that has that request. And I've had some clients that want a full desktop tower strictly because they don't want to deal with an external DVD drive that they're anticipating they might need. More than likely, and I laugh at this because they probably don't need it. They don't know it yet. So they're being cautious. And I tell them, "You're going to spend more money for this if you want to do it." They're the client. They get what they want. They said, "Yeah, I'd be more comfortable having it built in." And I say, "Well, when's the last time you've used one?" "I don't know." But it makes them feel good to have it. I said, "What about an external one?" They said, "Yeah, I just don't like that." Okay, all right. I have a feeling when it's time to upgrade that computer again in a few years, DVD drives won't even be on the table anymore internally. And when I ask them, "Do you want a DVD drive?" they're probably going to say, "We haven't used it in years." And if I ask them, "Did you ever use the one ever that was so important to you when we, upgraded this years ago?" I'll bet you they're going to say, "No, we ended up never needing it." So I don't know. It's up for each customer to decide, right? But more and more, even trying to find a computer case that has a space for an optical drive, let alone even finding an optical drive, because most manufacturers, as far as I know, don't make them anymore. What you're looking at available for sale is mostly old inventory. So it's just going away. There's like, horseshoes used to be a big thing. There's still people out there buying horseshoes, but not like it used to be. So bear that in mind when you're shopping around. Things are changing and evolving, and for good reason. Flash drives are far more larger capacity, faster, and cheaper than any CD, DVD, or Blu-ray disc. They're more robust, less likely for scratching and damage, and they don't create all the noise. You have much cheaper media, and the limited size of CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays doesn't compare to what you can do with a flash drive in performance and capacity, and ultimately for less money. So that's why there's just better things now. Let me get over to the chat room and see what questions you have, and then let's get into the R1. This will be my first experience with the MS-R1, an ARM-based desktop workstation, and my second experience with an ARM processor. As you recall, I bought a laptop with an ARM processor because I wanted to see what the differences were. And so far as I can tell in the way that I use it, everything runs exactly the same. I wouldn't know, other than the battery life is really, really good on it. So having it now it's a different CPU than what I have in the laptop. So this is Minisforum's solution here to an ARM-based workstation. And I don't know if you can see the back of this, but it's got a ton of ports back there. And the price on this is incredible. Also, before I forget, while we're looking at Minisforum's Black Friday special, one thing I'm not seeing are the newest products. They just came out like within the last week or two or three. And if we go to all products, I want to show you a couple things. We'll come back to this a little bit later because I don't want to give it all out right now. But this Atom Man G1 Pro, oh my Lord, this is insane. If you're into gaming, okay, if you're familiar with those long, thin, like X7 Ti's that we have from Minisforum, this bad boy, it's so brand new. Look, there's not even any reviews. They just came out with it. This is like an $1,800 build from Minisforum's, suggested retail price. Look at the specs. AMD Ryzen 9 8945HX. RTX 5060. DDR5, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4, Gen 4 NVMe drive. This thing is crazy. Now, if I were a gamer, if I had the time and the money to just play games, I would much rather have this than a full-size gaming tower, because then it's easy to move it around, and far less expensive than building a gaming PC. So maybe we'll get one of these in for review. It just got released. This is hot off the press. And I love, once again, Minisforum is just not sticking to any formulas here. We have a novel design. No other Minisforum looks like this computer, and no other computer from any competitor looks like this computer. So I love that it's not just a generic stamped box. They really put some time and thought into in making it unique, not only on the inside, but on the outside as well. There's not another product they've ever sold or is available on this page that looks like this. Whereas if you look at the standard, the square cubes, those are very difficult to tell one from another without really looking at the specifications. This, you know what it is the minute you know it. The minute you see it, you know exactly what that is. And they also released a new, well, we have the R1. There's one other one that just came out. I'm trying to remember which one it is. The variety, as I mentioned, is one of the things I love about Minisforum, is just how many different options at different price points that they have to choose from. And, we did review the AI X1, and I feel like this doesn't get the credit it deserves, because this looks like your standard little 4-inch cube mini PC, but you've got that AI Ryzen processor in there, the Ryzen 7 255, which is extraordinarily affordable. Down here is a bare bone, which means, again, you put your own storage and RAM in there. You're picking up a pretty high-end computer here at $355.90 that very few people talk about. I do feel like we need to go back and review like a second follow-up review on this, because it definitely isn't getting the fanfare and the trumpeting that the bigger brother, the AI X1 Pro, gets. This is far more affordable. and nothing to shake a stick at with regards to performance. So we're going to get back to this here in a little bit. Let me get back over to camera 1, and let's jump over to the chat room, and I'll see what questions you have. And I never did check my email, so we'll get caught up here. Nick Caffrey sends a PayPal contribution, and Nick says, "Happy Thanksgiving, Carey and Mara," with a $5 PayPal contribution. Thank you, Nick. Joins us from, who am I thinking of? Is Nick joining us from the Netherlands, or is that a different Nick? Well, wherever you are in the world, thank you. Our friend Mark Gaines, who's been a staunch supporter here of the channel and very generous individual, sent us an Amazon gift card. He says, "I hope you enjoy this gift card, my contribution in lieu of a super chat." Thank you so much, Mark, as always. And of course, a shout out again to our friend Buster and Thomas Krukella for their continued support, along with all of our members. All right, so let's take a look here in the chat and see what I have been missing in the conversations before I get to the unboxing of the R1. Ron Barnish joins us, says hello. John Rogers and Josh Kinder, Francis. Is it Francisco Orna or Oma? I can't, when you put an R and an N so close together, I'll tell you what, it looks like a letter M. Welcome in, Francisco, and Eddie Casanova, Bike Man, and Mark Gaines, Arnold Albert, and Michael Lavelle joining us, along with 3D Everything, David Graham, Scott, saying hello here in the chat, along with Doman 2000. Marlena, our channel administrator, hanging out in there with you guys. There's Ben Laird from Scotland saying hello. I see Sean Skinner and Luke Greeny is saying hello. Mark Baggett and Andy W6AD, Thomas Mac T. Marsman50 says hello. There's Dustin Fuller joining us, along with Dazzle555 and Buns of Wisdom. 1989 G-Money. Been a member for 42 months. That must be a name change, because I don't recall seeing that name in the last 42 months. But thank you for renewing, whoever you are. Checkmate in the chat says, sales and marketing technique. Price keeps going up in the future. Well, is it a technique, or is it a business trying to stay alive in a tight economy where inventory numbers are reduced? Generally speaking, the marketplace is self-maintaining. So in other words, the reason why the conspiracy theories don't work is it requires everybody to agree to some sort of ideal that we're going to raise our prices together. And if you're dealing with maybe 3 manufacturers and they sort of collaborate to raise prices, to artificially increase prices, that seems like it's possible. But when you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of different manufacturers around the world, what you need to understand is, if, let's say you build computers for a living, like let's say you're Minisforum, and you notice your competitors are all raising their prices strictly based on marketing. Why in the world would you raise your prices too? You want people to not buy your products? If all you're doing is raising your prices up to meet your competitor's price, that's generally not how business works. A lot of customers, and especially now, are going to be very focused on price first. They're looking for the best bang for the buck, the best value. So you'd have to be the worst business owner in history to fix your prices. Because if all of your competitors have fixed their prices and you can still make a profit at a lower price, you're going to make it up in quantity. You'll sell hundreds of units for every one they sell. And the profit of that will be multiple times the profit they're making on one unit that's priced high. So while it's great to sit here and make up imaginary reasons for things you can't prove and you have no evidence for, the reality is you'd have to be really, really against making money to artificially raise your prices to keep up with your competitors. Typically, The way the marketplace works for any industry, and it has been this way since the first business ever opened, is you want to lower your price or increase your value compared to your competitor. So if your competitor says, this is $500, and you have the same thing at $500, you as a consumer, how do you make a choice? Well, you probably go then to a secondary requirement, which is, what's my warranty? Or what do I know about the reputation of the company who makes it? Is it available, or do I have to wait 3 weeks to get it? Can I have it now? So when we talk about these things, then other avenues of consideration become the reasons for making a purchase. So if nobody's raising their prices just because they can, and it's $500 for this and $500 for this, and they're otherwise the same, but this one's got 2-year warranty, this one has a 1-year warranty. Bingo, there's your better value. But it's a tough decision for a consumer. Now, if you're buying, let's say you're a bakery. Let's say you own your own bakery, and you sell cakes and bread. When the cost of eggs goes up, then your cost to make the eggs, or I'm sorry, to make the bread and the cake, your cost goes up, right? Because you're not just buying a dozen eggs, you're buying maybe 100. Maybe you're buying a gross of eggs, let's just say, or more, and you're doing that every day. You're baking every day. You can imagine day after day after day after day how your operating expenses, through no choice of your own, you can't make the bread or the cakes without the eggs. And if the cost of the eggs, because of bird flu or whatever else happens, what choice do you have but to pay the higher price? Okay, so now if you're paying the higher price and you're still putting in the same amount of work, every day you're going to work and you're kneading the dough and you're baking and presenting these cakes and breads, how can you still charge the same price as you did when eggs were cheaper and still have any money left over to pay the bills? It's not a conspiracy. It's not like they're in it because they're going to make more money. They're going to make exactly the same amount of money they made before. And it's not like you're going to go to another bakery and find that they're sourcing their eggs somewhere cheaper. Because if they were doing that, why wouldn't everybody else? Unless it's a lower quality egg, or they're buying damaged eggs. I don't know, right? Something's lowering that price. And at that point, I wouldn't want to put that in my body. I wouldn't trust it. So you have to understand that when it costs you so much money to buy a gallon of gas, or however you buy gasoline, it's not necessarily like, let's say you're an Uber driver or a taxi driver. If the gas price is consistently staying up, you're still doing the same work. You still have all the same wear and tear on the car. You still put the same hours in, but now you're making less because your expenses went up. So what are you going to do? You can get out of business, or you can raise your prices in order to level off back. If you were making a 20% revenue, and now you're only making a 13% or a 15% revenue, your choice is to work harder and work more. So to learn how to live off 15%, or to get your profit margin back to 20%. You can't control those expenses. If it was one manufacturer that was doing it, I could get behind your theory. But you cannot get a conspiracy that every manufacturer is all agreed, we're just going to start raising RAM prices. It doesn't work like that. Because I promise you, when there's a product that people can't get enough of, other manufacturers will come, someone will say, well, I'll do that too. Just look at the state of AI. What started as 2 or 3 AI companies, now everybody sees money in this, and now there's more AI companies than you can shake a stick at. This results in a shortage of RAM, in that they're buying it all up, and that's leaving less for you and I. And that means that other manufacturers might go, oh, we can make a lot of money if we get into RAM manufacturing right now while the market's hot. And so when they do that, they'll be able to reduce prices by offering more options into the marketplace. And this is why I say the market always balances itself out. But wouldn't life be wonderful if everything was just so simple and we could just say, that's just a bad person trying to be greedy? I wish life were that simple. Unfortunately, it's a pretty complex, chaotic, messy thing. And it's no different than the video card shortage that was due to the crypto mining craze or the supply chain issues of the pandemic. Like, we in the PC industry haven't caught a break since 2019. We have gone from the hoarding of graphics cards for cryptocurrency mining to the supply chain issues and shortages, to the supply chain, getting the products over here during the pandemic. And now, what happens next? Well, graphics cards start getting on the market as sort of the cryptocurrency craze has died off, the NFT craze has died off, and now it's all Labubu and AI. And it's another craze, and it'll die off. I don't know when, but in the meantime, the longer it stays hot like this, other manufacturers see money-making opportunities to get into that market. So don't be surprised if you see some new RAM manufacturers and new SSD manufacturers starting to offer alternatives at cheaper prices. And that helps alleviate the supply and demand issue. When there's more demand than there is supply of anything on this planet, the price goes up. When you can find me a $5 5-carat diamond, you let me know. The rarer it is, the more it's worth. That's basically what supply and demand is all about. When you can make it common, like the American penny, nobody wants them. They're completely worthless. Well, I mean, they're worth a penny, which basically worthless. Hello to, and a thank you to David Graham, who renews his membership. Now a member for 27 months. He says, ho, 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 happy holidays. Eric DeLalo says hello. Jim Kenny joins us. And Xander Vanderhoven says hello from the Netherlands. Welcome in. Welcome in. Buns of Wisdom joining us from Turkey. Oh, we have viewers all over the world here. That's amazing. David Herzog says hello. Elijah Dickens joining us. Here in the chat room says hello. There's Nick Caffrey saying hello. Bajan Guy. And if you're watching us live, please join us in our chat room. We are an interactive channel. We're not like the YouTube channels you're used to. We like to talk with people that are nice. So come on in and say hello. And I say we, I'm talking about the whole community. If you want to come in and be the internet police, we'll probably kick you out. But if you want to come in and be cool, man, we'd love to have you join us while we're live right now. And by we, again, not just me, the entire community. Come on in, just say hello, watch what happens. Anywhere in the world, doesn't matter. You don't have to be one of the cool kids. You don't have to meet any requirement, age, religion, gender, ethnicity. None of that matters. Just be nice. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be dumb. You don't have to be anything but nice. We would love to have you join us in our live videos. So if you're thinking about it, try it. I think you might like it. PC Man joins us. Speaking of other folks joining us here in the chat room, I just want to give everybody a shout out here. Barry Klein says hello. Welcome into our good friend Barry joining us here in the chat. Frank Jimmy says hello. And Corey Man joins us from Canada. And there's Gary Tatum. And Brian Weber said, best community here. Well, that's because we have the best people, right? I mean, the people are the community. And if we have people that are troublemakers, then we basically have 4chan. And there's already a 4chan. So if you're looking to just stir trouble and be part of a malicious gang, I'll point you in the direction. It ain't here. And let's see, Tim Gillis says hello and joins us. And there's Richard saying hello. Welcome in, everybody. And we're so happy to have you here. All right. So taking a look today, for the very first time, an ARM-based workstation. Let me take a look at the specs on this so we understand what we're going to be looking at, because I do all this live completely unprepared, just as a computer technician that works in the industry. I've been working in the industry professionally nonstop since 1991. I'm on my 34th, going on my 35th year. So at some point, you just stop reading manuals, because when you do this every single day, those little details are like minor. Everything's kind of the same, and we're sort of looking for the differences. And then every once in a while, I still get thrown and I have to go back and read a manual. But I like for this to be as much as possible intuitive. That tells me if it's intuitive to me as a computer technician, and I don't have to go to the documentation, then we have a well-engineered product. That's the way I see it. A computer technician with the experience I have should not need to go and read a manual unless you've invented some brand new technology, you know, that's never been seen before. So let me jump over to Minisforum's website here, and let's go back over to, let's see, go back over to my screen share, and let's find the MS-R1. I know it's in here somewhere. Maybe I can search for it. Maybe it's a new arrival. There's the A1. It may be because it's not an Intel or AMD. Oh, here it is. Okay, $500 basically. This is brand new. They just came out with this a few weeks ago. This uses an ARM CP8180 CPU. And by the way, Minisforum has their own YouTube channel, and they often run live videos. And the gentleman you see here is the one who hosts them. It's just a little covering up some of the page, so I'm not getting rid of him because I don't like him. I actually enjoy his videos, and I recommend, if you want to learn more about Minisforum, who better to learn it from than a representative of the company. So after my videos, if you're craving more knowledge about a specific model, check out Minisforum's YouTube channel. You might even want to subscribe to them to hear about all the latest new offerings they have, from portable monitors and GPU docks and Thunderbolt docks to mini PCs and keyboards and everything in between. Okay, the model we're looking at here, 32 gigs of RAM and a zero, okay, so no SSD for $500 bucks. 32 gigs of RAM today, just so you know. If you're sitting down, it will set you back about $300. Don't believe me? Watch this. Let's jump over to Newegg. And let's see how much we can get 32 gigs. Let's do laptop memory, right? Let's go 32 gig SODIMM. And we want two of them. Oh, that's actually a really good price. It's only $210. That's DDR4. Which one is this, DDR5 or DDR4? Of course, I'm talking about DDR5 RAM, but it's all gone up. Yeah, this is going to be LP DDR5. That means it's going to be soldered on. Okay, when you see that LP or low power, well, it's possible you could have a low power socket. It's unlikely. So if you do see LPDDR5 or LPDDR4 listed specifically on a laptop or a portable machine, mini PC, that means it's not upgradable, it's soldered on. And that's important to know, because if you just max out the unit, you'll never have to worry about upgrading it. If the max it can hold is 64 gig, and you think there might come a day where you'll want that, you better just go ahead and order it with it, because that's cheaper in the long run than having to replace the whole unit, which may not be feasible for you. Like if you can't afford the difference between 32 and 64, you likely can't afford to buy a whole new unit. So make sure you think ahead when you buy these machines that use soldered on RAM, which includes laptops and tablets, to make sure that you're buying for the period of time you want to be able to use the machine for. This thing has two 10 gig Ethernet ports, which is insane. It's got a PCIe by 16 slot, This is a 12-core, 12-thread, 2.6 gig, only 28-watt TDP with 45 trillion operations per second NPU. So that's a really, when it comes to doing any like local language models and things like that, the fact that an ARM processor supports an NPU is pretty cool, and it's the way of things. We're going to see more and more of that. It supports Proxmox virtualization, so KVM and Docker containers based on Android VMs. If you want to put that operating system on it, it's got a maximum of 28-watt turbo power consumption, maximum. That's when I say these things are really efficient, and noise will be under 40 dB at its loudest. And of course, we're back at that 1.7 liter size, which is what we're typically seeing from the MS-R1 and A1 and A2 series of workstations. And let's see, what else can we learn about this? Oh, it's the world's first ARM Mini workstation with UEFI boot. This is significant. This is what's going to make it compatible or less of a struggle to put your operating system on it. And it's saying all you have to do is plug this in, power it on, and dive straight into Linux, virtual machines, or containers. You just write your ISO to a USB drive, install, and jump straight into Linux, again, virtual machines or containers. Now, Minisforum's already done the work for you here when it comes to the Linux options, so you don't have to beat your head against the wall to figure out the specific drivers. And they're saying for the best experience, it's highly recommended you use, they've already done the work, they've already done it for you, and you go to their website where we have a link in our video notes that has all the documentation and instructions for Proxmox, for Linux, and for Windows. It says with up to 64 gig with ECC support optional. This is going to provide the speed and reliability you need for virtualization and containers. So I don't know if any of you use any virtualization or if any of you use containers. That's why I say this is a little bit of a niche product, but it also holds value to people that want a lot of power without using a lot of power or spending a lot of money to just keep it on Windows. You just want to make sure that if you're using any unique like system utilities or high-end applications, that they are compatible. Every application I run in Windows, from Microsoft Office to Instant House Call and all the other support software I use, I haven't run anything that doesn't run on ARM yet, personally. But I do know there's some stuff out there, it's just not as common. We talk about 10 gig Ethernet ports. This has Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3. And then there's a slot in here for a graphics card. A little bit more about the CPU, a little bit about the cooling and power consumption and noise. We're going to be, out of the box, we're going to be using the built-in GPU that's part of the CPU, I guess, is what it looks like. And then you have the option of adding a discrete GPU if you want to. With storage, you're only going to get two M.2s, and only one of them is Gen 4, just so you know. There's only so many lanes available on these CPUs. Less power, you're going to pay for that in other ways, right? So if you wanted 4 internal drives, this isn't the box for you. I believe this other one here with M.2 E-key is running at a much slower speed, but I'd have to look that up. I think this is ×4, and this may only be ×1 or ×2. I'd have to look it up. And I'm wondering now if this M.2 and this M.2 are the same, or if there's a third one. We'll have to open it up and look. Video output's going to have HDMI, one of those that supports 4K up to 60 Hertz. There's also a Type-C that supports DisplayPort out, and there's 2 of those, so you could have a total of 3 monitors connected at the same time. You also have a 3.5 millimeter audio jack for input and for output. And we have USB Type A, USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 1. That's going to be, what, 10 gigabits per second? And then a USB 2. You're going to have 2 of those. That's good for keyboard and mouse and devices that are like 480 megabits per second. It's a lot slower than USB 3, but Again, for a lot of devices like sound cards, if you wanted external sound, or keyboards, mice, these things, you know, you're using a fraction of even what USB 2 can do. So use them appropriately for whatever accessories you're plugging in. If you were wanting to move a lot of files to external storage, you probably want the faster one for that. A little bit about the Type-C port that does have power delivery output and supports 100-watt power delivery in. Interesting. So does that mean we can power this whole unit just through USB? It certainly reads that way. And then you've got 2 more USB Type A's. Those are going to be your 10 gig per second. So you got a lot of USB ports on here. I don't know what a power loss switch is. A BIOS flash pen. A UART is, think of it as a serial port. And then EDP, which I guess is what, external display port? I'm not sure what EDP is. I'll have to learn what that is. It's a 19 volt, 180 watt, or powered by Type-C 20 volt, 100 watt, and supports Debian 12. So what I'm curious about, now that I've read all these specs, is what did they send me? Does this have an SSD, or do we have to put one in? I have no idea. So let me jump back over to camera 1. And again, let me take a look in the chat to see if there's any questions before we have this experience here. Thomas says, I didn't know as a member of the channel that I wouldn't receive advertisements. So on members only videos that aren't for the public, there's no advertisements on a members only video, including all of the members only archives that go back for years and years and years. There's no advertisements on any of those. When we make videos for the general public, the only way we can make any money from the general public, and even at that, it's going to be teeny tiny bits, is through the advertising. And YouTube does not give us a way to say, if this person's a member, don't show them the ads. It's basically, if the video is a members only video, we choose not to put ads on it. If the video is a public video and the public gets to watch it for free, then we're either spending money to give this content to the public, or we're offsetting some of our costs by allowing those ads to play. Now, maybe at some point YouTube will allow us to separate out, apart from the video category, who gets ads and who doesn't. But at this point, they don't allow us that opportunity. It's not a choice we have, and there's not a tier of membership that can exclude you from all ads. So essentially, if you don't want ads, you would sign up for YouTube Premium. And I think they have that starting at $8 a month. And you'll still get ads like with music, certain content, but just regular content like my own wipes out ads without being a member. If you want to support what we're doing here because you enjoy our content and you'd like to see more content, we don't have paid sponsors here. So basically, without our viewer support, we don't have a channel anymore. So there's 2 different sides of things that I think are a little conflated. And you're not alone in that sort of misunderstanding. And we're working within YouTube's possibilities. And YouTube keeps changing things up. It may not stay this way, or it might. We have no idea. But we are fully giving our members every benefit we possibly can. But in a members only video is where we have to exclude it. When it's a public video, then it's sort of like, whichever way we designate the video as being public or members only determines if it has ads, not over who's watching it. So not our choice, not the way we would have it, but yeah, that's how that goes. Tim Davern wants to know if anybody has a recommended M.2 duplicator cloner device that you use. I mean, I use Acronis software personally, but I think if you go on Amazon and you find any of those M.2 duplicators, they are all basically the same, right? If you want to do 1-to-1 or 1-to-3, 1-to-4, depending on how much you want to spend, and then look at the reviews, they're just, for me, they're too slow, and I don't clone enough to justify the cost of it. I would just rather, it's faster and cheaper for me to use Acronis, because a duplicator is more for forensic recovery, where you're trying to recover data. It copies the entire drive, regardless if it's empty or full, doesn't matter. A 1 terabyte drive is going to take a certain amount of time to clone it on a hardware duplicator, regardless if it's empty or not. Makes no difference. But with Acronis, not only is it cheaper, it's a lot faster, because it can intelligently resize partitions. So if we're going from 1 terabyte to 2 terabytes, a cloner's just dumb. A cloner just takes every sector blindly from your source and copies every sector exactly the same on your target. And if your target is larger than your source, you'll have to manually resize all of that yourself. And if you only have 20% of used space, it still copies 100% of the sectors. So it's going to take you 4 times longer to do the copy. So for me personally, unless I'm trying to duplicate dozens and dozens and dozens of drives, only then would a hardware cloner make sense to me. But that's the best answer I can give you. I would use software. It's much faster, much cheaper, a lot less work. Tim says, yeah, thanks. I have Acronis also. Yeah, I think you're going to find you can clone 5 drives in the amount of time, with Acronis. In the same amount of time it'll take you to clone 1, unless that drive's completely full. Using a hardware cloner doesn't make any sense. If I had if I was in a corporation and I had, I don't know, 50, 100 new machines come in, and I don't want to configure each one of them individually, and they're all exactly the same, deployed with the same corporate policy structure, I would work on one master, and then I would clone all the others. And even then, I would have a hard time justifying a hardware duplicator, because a duplicator that can do 9 or 10 or 20 drives, you're looking at $5,000, $10,000 for these duplicators. So I'd have to be using it like every day. There'd have to be 50 new machines I got to get out today, 50 more I got to get out tomorrow. That would be the only way I could do it with 1 employee. But if I had more employees, then, you know, it sort of goes back and forth. And then a simple 1-to-1 cloner seems like you wouldn't be using it that often. To have it as a dock, like if you want to do a data recovery and you want to put an NVMe drive in a dock to be able to pull the files off of it, the cloners often double up as a dock as well. And I find them more useful as a dock. But I don't think I've ever officially used an NVMe hardware cloner outside of testing. It's just too cumbersome. It takes too long. I'd rather just plug the thing in and use Acronis. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Does Acronis clone the system identifier? It can. There's options in Acronis to change it. And you can just Google that if you want to. Depending on the version of Acronis, they'll show you how you go in and make that option, change that option if you want to. Okay, so are we ready to do our unboxing? The Minisforum MS-R1. The back of it says we have 1 terabyte of storage and 64 gigs of RAM. So I'll be curious what operating system we have on here. Will it be Debian? Will it be Windows? Let's find out. I know one way I could stop guessing. Plug it in and see. Put that over there. Here we go. Let's get a close-up. There we go. Oh, might have to lock in my autofocus. That's painful. Let's go back to the widescreen. You know what? I'm thinking on camera too. I really should lock the focus, but I'm not going to do it right now. So we'll just keep it. Like I said, we're alive and unscripted. All right. our mini PC. Ooh, there was a little piece of foam back there that came off. This was, I haven't seen Minisforum do that before. They included this piece of foam here. I guess it was like this. And that helps ensure that you get the machine without damage. That's another thing people don't talk enough about, is how well a manufacturer packs their stuff, right? Because I guarantee you this goes through a whole series of quality control checks that if you saw what they went through, you'd wonder how it's possible to ever get a bad unit. The problem is once it leaves the factory, there's no telling how it's handled by the shipment cargo container loaders and unloaders and the trucks it gets packed on into the warehouse, and how it gets unpacked, into the individual boxes, and then how that then gets carried on by your local delivery service that might drop kick it to your front door. Like, these things, if they could talk and tell you about their journey from around the world, you'd be surprised they didn't arrive with purple bruises. So Minisforum and other manufacturers really take their care to pack it well, because they don't want to send out a unit that doesn't work. That costs them way too much money. So they make sure everything works 100% 5 times over. It goes through an incredible testing process and quality control process. So if you end up with a unit that goes bad, it's likely damage that was caused in shipping, more than likely. And what can you do? What can you do? So that's why you have a warranty. And the best thing the Minisforum can do to save you the aggravation and save them the added expense is spend a little bit more on making sure everything's packed really well. All right, let me bring this up and we'll get a close look at it here. I'll bring it up to the camera. So you can see the 3 USB type A's. There's 2 USB 2s, the black ones. USB 3, that's going to be a 10 gigabit per second. We've got our headphone, headset, microphone jack, power button, and then come around the side. We have some information about the machine here. Other side just says Minisforum. We've got rubber feet on the bottom. And on the back, let's see all the goodies. 2 more USB 2s, 2 more USB 3s, 2 USB type Cs that are, I'm going to guess these have got to be USB 3 with DisplayPort and power delivery. Otherwise, they would say USB 4. So I don't believe these are USB 4. Both of these Ethernets are 10 gig. That's a pretty big deal. That's why this is like a home lab enthusiast dream. This is the slot that can be removed if you want to put a low-profile graphics card in here. And yeah, your HDMI, your barrel-style power connector. And this button, usually on other models, that's how you open these up. But sometimes you got to take some screws out first. And it appears, yeah, it appears we're going to have to remove some screws. And then you'll push this little button and the whole top will slide off. And then that's how you get on the inside of it. I'm just curious if we have to remove. There's 8 screws on the bottom, but there's no rubber feet you have to remove to get to them. Thank you, Minisforum. But before we get that far into it, let's continue, see what else we have in the box. So below this packing, obviously we're expecting to have a power brick right here. A power cable. This is a standard PC power cable, probably the same as what computer tower you're using now uses. We have some screws, probably for some internal drive options, I'm guessing. We have a short HDMI cable. That's if you wanted to, what would you use this for? You're not likely going to mount this to the back of a monitor, are you? Typically, when they're this big and heavy, they don't have VESA mounts. And I don't know, there's something in this box. What is this? Oh, okay. This is a little power cable. And in here we have what looks like a drive adapter. What is this for? Oh, okay. All right. This will convert what appears to be a 2.5-inch drive. It's got a little dust cover on it. So if we take that dust cover off, oh, this is not us. This is not for SATA. This would be for like a 2.5-inch NVMe drive that requires power and would plug into. It's kind of like an M.2. It's a little different. Let me bring it up to the camera and I'll show you. This has a name and it's eluding me right now. I can't think of what they call this. I'm sure somebody in the chat can tell me. See, that connector is a little different from a SATA connector. So this is going to be 2.5-inch NVMe drive. These are the enterprise type drives that, you know, data centers will use. That's why when it comes to like somebody who's running a home lab where you're trying to emulate a data center but on a much smaller, cheaper scale, you're going to be using this level of hardware. You don't have to. It's just an option in the box for people that have that interest, which is really, really cool. So let me set this aside. I didn't realize that this was in there, so I'm genuinely surprised. And we do have, I think we have 2 NVMe 2.5-inch drives that we can use to test that if we want to. And we're not done yet. We still have more stuff in the box. Like the goodies keep on coming. Let me just take this out because it's hard to show you. Okay, here's everything else left in the box. We've got some documentation. We've got something with regards to, I think this is dealing with a QR code to get the product guides. There's an additional M.2 heatsink here if you want to add another M.2 drive. And then one more accessory here. Let's see what this is. I feel like I got an early Christmas opening up all these packages. This, okay. Here's what I think this is. It looks like one of the M.2 slots is 110 millimeters in length. So what do you do if you have a standard 80 millimeter in length NVMe drive? It won't reach. So this looks like an adapter that you could seat a normal 2280 in here and secure it down, and then place it into the slot and secure it with the 110 millimeter mounting point. And that way they can accommodate, again, we're talking more enthusiast or data center type drives, which again, I'm not quite sure how many of you that watch my videos would find a use for that. But when you want to dabble in the professional side of things, like when you want to dabble with real life servers and server level of equipment, this isn't the kind of stuff we generally cover here on the channel because, well, quite frankly, I can't afford it. This is an affordable version of the, how can I explain this? A data center is going to have a massive scale. So they're not going to have one 2.5-inch NVMe drive. They're going to have thousands. They're not going to have just 110 millimeter NVMe drive. They're going to have thousands. So if you see this, you walk into this room You usually need ear protection. It's so loud. And you just see a aisle after aisle of stacked towers with blinking lights humming. And all these lights are blinking, and you go, wow, that's so cool. I'd love to have a little Hickory's Farm sampler at home. You know the little samples? That's an old, outdated reference. I'm really showing my age. You go to like Costco and they have the person that hands out the little bite-sized samples. They sell a sausage. It's like 4 feet long, but they'll give you like a little toothpick with a bite on it and go, here, do you want to try it? And if you like it, you buy it. Okay, so think of this as like a sampler for a home version of a smaller, much smaller scale data center. So if you were someone who was wanting to hone your skills as an admin, so you could apply for jobs and have familiarity with how these things work, the equipment involved, along with the configuration, you could start doing that at home without the need to buy the expensive equipment at home, which is what people used to do. My dad used to have a big computer that was a big metal box. It was about the width and length of a pallet, a standard wooden pallet, and went up about, I'd say, 3 feet. It was huge. It had a big on-off switch. No keyboard, no mouse, no monitor. And that's how he was able to do work from home. He was programming in the RPG2 language. And in order to program from home, they didn't have remote access. They didn't have internet. So you had to bring a unit home and use it. In fact, Mara also has a very large unit in the garage that I don't even know what it is. It's about half the size of what my father had. And that's how you did remote work back in the day. Nowadays, you can do what we call home lab kind of work, where you're getting a smaller, more affordable version, more individual sized, fun size, you know, like Halloween treats. You get the small bite size. And that's what this all is. This is sort of like a bite-sized version of the really high-end equipment out there. And you can use it for a lot of different things besides that one example of like training yourself and getting yourself familiar with that platform. You can also use it for things like home automation, where you want to control things yourself with one application. So maybe your garage door opener and your sprinkler system. I have a friend of mine, for example, that created little gears and a little motor to automatically open the windows on his house when he wants what he considered to be the house to breathe. And he can just push a button on his computer and the windows open up. And then you push a button on the computer and the windows close. He put a little pinch sensor because he's got small children, and if they get their fingers in there, it's not going to crush their fingers. And all of this he's doing himself with off-the-shelf parts, information he's learned between online and using a 3D printer. He can make his own gears. And you know, if you're in that mindset, this is right up your alley for that kind of thing. Using something like Proxmox to control all the automation, even be your media center. It can be basically the brains of a smart home that knows no limits other than your own imagination. That's yet another example of how this could be used. Another example is, hey, I just want a really inexpensive Windows workstation. And once again, if having up to 10 gigs per second Ethernet or 10 gigabit Ethernet is important to you, just that add-on alone is over $100 to add 10 gigabit networking to a standard desktop computer. You can go on Amazon and price them. They're typically over $100. And that doesn't include the cost of your network cable, your network switch, or the thing you're plugging it into also has to be 10 gig or you're not going to see the advantage of it. So there's a lot of room for growth here. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong unit. This is I'm going to confuse myself. Let me move this one aside. This is the MS-R1. Gosh, they look very similar, but they're very different. Let me set that back here so I don't do that again. Let me move this over here. Let's move these over here because we know they go to this unit. The reason I knew I was looking at the wrong one is the MS-R1 has SFP plus connectors, so it's got 4 Ethernets. So I was looking at it and I'm like, when did this get 40? And I realized it's the wrong one. But let's plug this in and let's see how Minisforum has configured it, because I really don't know what operating system this has on here. So we'll grab a power cable, which I have somewhere down here. And I need an Ethernet cable. No, I'm not going to plug Ethernet in yet, not on our first boot. I will need HDMI. So we'll go into the capture card and we'll watch this together. And then finally, I just need a keyboard and a mouse and we should be good to go. Honestly, I don't know if Linux is coming up or if Windows is coming up. No clue. And that's the way I like it. And you get a real genuine reaction. All right, let's see if we get, yeah, turns on. I heard the fan start up, but it's really, really quiet. Let's jump over to this output so we can look at it together. Well, that's looking like a Linux install to me. So first time experience for me with this, whatever this version of Linux, this Debian 12. So clearly out of the box, they're intending this for somebody that would be a Linux user or knows Linux. And I'm assuming something's happening. I can't tell. Let me put camera 1 back on and just put myself in a corner here so we can watch me and watch the machine at the same time. Go up here. Are we on or did it turn off? It's on. Do I push a button? What am I supposed to do now? So in my line of work, the way that I earn money, the way that I make a living the last 34 years is servicing clients' computers. Most computers in the world are running a Windows operating system. That's where the most opportunity for work and to earn money is. I don't necessarily like or dislike Windows. I don't necessarily like or dislike Linux, and I don't necessarily like or dislike Apple, except I don't spend a lot of time with things that don't earn me money because I don't have enough money to afford to stop making money to go off and play with other trinkets. I wish I did. When I hear people complaining about Windows, I'm like, stop using it. I don't care if you use Windows. Nobody cares what operating system you use. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay in business. And when I have worked in corporate IT, you don't get to pick if you like the desk chair you're sitting at. You don't get to pick which keyboard you get. You are paid to go to a job and you will use the computers they provide with the operating systems they provide. And whether or not you like it is not an option on the table. That's not why you're there. You're there to get a job done. So when I hear all the home users, particularly online and on the internet, it's like Twilight Zone. It's like these people all live with a different, they're almost like they're victims and they talk about, oh, Linux is so much better, blah. I don't know why they feel the need to sit there and evangelize and prophesize this operating system. They didn't create it. It's very strange to me. And if you work for a living, which, you know, I wasn't lucky enough to be born into a family like the Kardashians where there's all this money. My parents said, you're 18, you know, you gotta get a job and you need to work, and we're not providing you nothing, and we have nothing to leave you when we're gone. So good luck out there. So I'm out looking for a job going, you know, could I have some money? Can you let me work for you and you will pay me? And the company said, in some occasions, yes. Can you start Monday? Here's where you'll be sitting. This is your chair. This is your computer. We're going to show you how to use it. And it doesn't matter. If you don't like it, quit. That's it. Or start your own company and do it your way. To turn around and tell your boss, hey, your Windows operating system sucks. You should be using Linux. Probably going to find yourself out of a job. They didn't hire you for that purpose. And they don't care what you think. Just get back to work, buddy. That's what we're paying you for. So I want you to be aware when you're reading these things online and seeing a lot of home-based content creators on YouTube, they're talking about issues that don't exist in the working world that pays for everything like YouTube and the computers they're using. Wouldn't exist without working. Somebody's paying for this stuff. And it is a massive, massive discrepancy in attitude between a home user's entitlement, where the home user is the boss. It's my house, it's my computer, versus you working for somebody, you're working for them, you're doing a job they're paying you to do. And if you don't like it, quit. You're not there to change it. And yet people talk online as though, what I hear often is that Windows is terrible. This is the death of Windows. It's like, do you not go outside? Do you see those big high-rise buildings downtown? Do you not see rush hour? Where are people coming and going during rush hour? Did they have any say at those jobs? Unless they run the company over what computers or what operating systems, it's none of your business. Get back to work. And that makes up probably 4/5 or more of the computers in the world. Home users are a tiny little percentage, and for them to whine and complain, this is the death of Windows, that only applies to you. It doesn't apply to the death of Windows around the world. It's just you in the world you live in, which is super teeny tiny. And it bothers me that people don't seem to acknowledge this distinction. It's a pretty big distinction. Most of us who go to work, we don't have a choice. That's what we use. Our boss doesn't care if we like it or not. If you don't like it, you can quit. It's real easy. But the home users that make up the majority of content here on the internet act like that other 4/5 of the world doesn't exist. It's very strange. To me, it is. Anyway, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, because I would assume Linux would boot up. Let me turn this back off and try again. I wanted to stall a little bit just to give it time if it's, I don't know, installing something. So I'll hold the power button in until the light goes off. You can do that on any computer, on any operating system, laptop, any PC or desktop. If you ever like totally frozen up, just hold the power button in for about 10 to 12 seconds. Let's turn it back on, let it restart again, see if it does the same thing. Because if it does, then I guess it's time to read the documentation. What does it say? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so I guess it offered us some option there in the beginning. And it's happening so fast and it's not familiar to me. I don't know what it says. I don't know what it's asking me, but we are getting a desktop. And let's see what happens next. I've never seen this before in my life. Is it doing something? Wow. Okay. All right, so we have an install of Debian out of the box. Not sure why I had to restart that, but I'm just poking around here, trying to find some familiarity with Windows layout. And my screen is super tiny. It's really hard for me to read anything. You guys can see it much better than I can. I'm at a complete loss with this personally because I don't have any experience with it. And I don't have any desire to have any experience with it because I'm not a home user. I'm trying to earn a living. And if I were going to sell this to one of my clients, I couldn't earn a living teaching them how to use it because I'd have to learn it myself. And I can't work for what I'm familiar with while learning what I'm not familiar with and still be as productive. It's going to cost me some money and how much labor I have available for paying clients. Then I have to have the clients, you know, be taught once I've learned it to teach it. I just don't want to do that. So I would put Windows on this. And maybe we should try that now. So the question is, okay, if you're familiar with Linux and you see that and you love it, hey, you're well ahead of me in that area. We all have different areas of interest and expertise. That's just not me. I'm a Windows guy because that's where the money comes from. That's it. I can't stress that enough. If the money was coming from Linux, I'd be a Linux guy. If the money was coming from Apple, I'd be an Apple guy. If the money was coming from Commodore 64, I would be a Commodore 64. I love computers and I love working with them. And the easiest way to find work is to find the one that's the most popular. And that way you'll never be short of any work. Okay? It's not what I like. I like helping people. And if most people have a certain thing, then more people with that thing will need help. Just statistically, it won't be so hard to find work. But then if somebody just likes toying with things, or if somebody's more of a niche vertical expert on something, they probably make a lot more money than me because that work is hard to find by comparison. And the people who qualify, who know how to do that, are fewer to pick from in the workforce. You know, so take your pick. Cheryl Cochran said this appears to be Debian with a GNOME desktop. Okay. Poorly Boy said stick Windows 11 Pro on there, Carey. Dandy Field Yuck says, was the KVM for me? I know that's something I need, but I believe I can do this without one temporarily. Oh, they must be asking a question I've missed. He's got the MSA2 to configure. Feels like drowning. I'm sorry I missed what you said earlier, but David Graham said use your KVM with a $2 super chat. Oh, we could use the KVM and hook it up to here. It's just I've got a pretty crowded desk right now. We'll probably cover more on the KVM Monday during our members only video. And I also have a laptop for diagnosing and repair. That'll be a members only video. We'll do that on Monday as well. I think that's the plan right now. So we do have exclusive content for our members. If you're not a member here, it's another reason to support us, is so we can do that kind of content. But every content we do doesn't just go out to the public for free. We have to give the members something in exchange for what they give us. But with the extra, we're able to make members only videos. And with companies that send us product reviews, items for product review, we make those public, of course. Chris Garrett said he worked at Kroger and they would set up new computers and workstations and throw the brand new keyboards and mice away. Yeah, probably avoids a lot of support issues by doing that. Okay, so we're not completely lost here. And the reason I say that is Minisforum gave me a heads up and said everything you were going to know or want to know about this is on our GitHub page. And that's in the links below today's video. So if I go to today's video and I click on the video description below it, right down below the product description, it'll say all technical documentation and downloads can be found here. And it's a GitHub link. And that GitHub link, it looks like this. And you'll see there's a base guide, which is overview, hardware, BIOS, and firmware tips, how to reinstall your operating system, how to install Proxmox VE, this is the installation and setup, how to run Android in Docker, and how to run Jellyfin, Jellyfin use. Are they saying how to run Jellyfin in Docker? So how to reinstall OS. Okay, the MS-R1 operating system reinstallation guide. First of all, download a system image. There's a stable version and there's for better idle power. There's two different versions here. And it's a Google Drive link. Now this is likely for Linux, I'm gonna guess, for the operating system we've got here now. And then there's some credentials. Hey, they told us the username and password. What a concept, right? Don't get me started on that. And then the system source code is available on GitHub. Look, I really love that Minisforum's done all this. But what if I want Windows? I think, see, this doesn't specify to us. This is reinstalling the OS, but it doesn't say which OS. I have to assume it's the OS we have now. And they do warn you that while the CPU drivers are not yet fully merged into the mainstream Linux kernel, Minisforum's official system image provides the best user experience. Once the drivers are merged into the mainstream Linux kernel, you'll be able to use any operating system similar to a regular x86 PC. So all of this appears to be directions for installing Linux. This is NVIDIA's driver, debug commands. So the base guide. I'll be honest, a lot of this goes right over my head. I'm running Android outside of my phone. Never tried that before. Proxmox, I've never used in my life. I know why it's used, and it doesn't solve any problems for me or my customers at this time. So I don't have any desire to use it because I have no motivation and no interest. There's nothing in it for me. It doesn't solve any curiosities I have. It doesn't solve any problems I have. And it doesn't solve any problems for my customers that I'm aware of. So therefore, I spend what time I have working with problems that exist, not with imaginary ones. And if I had spare time to mess around and play, this looks like something really fun to play with, but I'm not quite sure what purpose it serves other than my own curiosity. Now, that being said, maybe there's not a Windows installed for this. Let's do a Google search and let's type in how to install Windows 11 MS-R1 just to see if there's any documentation here. You know, I don't think we need to do anything special. I think what we do is we go to download Windows 11, and that first link brings up Microsoft, right? And then we go to download the ISO image. And you see here it says for x64 devices. That would be Intel and AMD. Windows ISOs for ARM64, that's what the R1 is, are available here. So we click on that. Now here's a version of Windows for ARM-based PCs. Select your download, Windows 11, that's going to be Home and Pro and everything else. Download now. And I think at this point, everything else is the same as any other Windows download. English United States, confirm. Verify your download. Download now. Okay. So that should begin a download up here. 6.8 gigs. So it's going to take a few minutes. And then we can use Rufus or Balena Etcher, for example, to make that image onto a bootable USB flash drive, boot from that flash drive and install Windows. I mean, it should be that straightforward. I say should be because I've never seen an ARM-based workstation before. So let me get back over to full screen on camera 1. This appears ready to roll. Take it out of the package, start using it. If you're familiar with Debian, with Linux, and that looks familiar to you, it's ready to roll out of the box. For me, this is a whole brand new experience. I'm not even sure where to start. I don't even know the basics. I don't really have time. So what I would do is I would experiment with putting Windows 11 on this. I anticipate if there's any driver related issues that those drivers will be available via Minisforum, but I'd have to try it and see. We know Windows 11 does run on ARM. That's what that version of Windows 11 is and how you get it. It's completely free for you to download and install it, just like any other version of Windows 11. You're still going to use the same product codes to activate it afterwards. And until I actually have that experience, I don't know if you just install it and you're good to go, and Windows Update takes over from there. That's been my experience with the laptop that is ARM-based, is that Windows 11 provides everything. On Windows Update, it provides the BIOS updates, and it provides the drivers. So far as I can tell, I cannot put drivers on manually, nor can I even download drivers manually on the ARM-based laptop. And that's from a different manufacturer. And they said, look, you're not going to put drivers on this. You're not going to update firmware on this. This is all going to happen through Windows Update. So if it's not on Windows Update, it doesn't exist. I wonder if this works the same way. Because I don't know much about it, I'm hopeful that's exactly what it does. All right, let me get over to the chat while we're downloading this, see if you have any questions for me. Filament on Fire says, I don't believe Windows for ARM has support for the CPU in the R1. This is fairly cutting edge hardware. You make a valid point there, right? That this is a brand new CPU. This isn't the Snapdragon, that we've seen in the other machines. I don't know, and you could be absolutely correct, but I'm sure it's coming. Here's the way I see it. As this sits with Linux on it, because I'm not a Proxmox user and because I'm not a Linux user, and I have zero experience with any of that, it's sort of like I have all the skill playing a piano and you hand me a clarinet. I don't know the first thing about playing a clarinet. But if I utilize the skills I have and work on honing those skills, I could immediately take use of the piano right now. And by using the piano, utilize the skills I have while also honing those skills. The more I do it, the better I get. You never reach a point where it's like, I'm never going to get any better. That's kind of stops when you start to something else. So now I want to start learning the clarinet. I can't play the clarinet and the piano at the same time. So the time I would spend honing my piano skills is now being traded for time spent learning the clarinet. So that means the longer I go without playing the piano, the more I start losing that skill. The more I'm playing the clarinet, the more I start gaining that skill. And then over enough period of time, I can probably play both pretty good. But if you just pick one thing and stick at it, you're just going to get better and better and better. The minute you start spreading yourself thin, trying to be a master of, what do they call that, a jack of all trades and a master of none, then you have a little bit of knowledge about each thing, but you're not really masterful in any of those things. So for me, if I were to put Windows 11 on this and that CPU is supported, for this computer to be useful for me personally, I would wait and say, okay, well, it's an early product. We need to wait for Windows support. It's coming. I'm sure it's coming. And that'll happen a lot faster than me learning Linux. I'll tell you that right now. But look, this isn't always about what I want. When we showcase products here on the channel, what we're doing is we're trying to give our audience, which varies in different interests in different age groups in different countries all over the world, and we're trying not to alienate anybody, with my primary purpose being what is it that I work on and that I do, and what's the most common computer out there, or at least operating system. So 99% of this content is going to be for what I believe is 99%, or the majority of computer users that will relate to it. And every once in a while, we get some specialty products like the KVMs. That's not for everybody. But I think it's enough people that, and it serves me a purpose. I might just be really ahead of the game, and people that don't realize they need a KVM will realize it in a year or two. That could be true for me in Linux, right? We can't predict that. So the MS-R1, when Minisforum said they were sending this to me, I said, well, how do I review this? This doesn't follow any of my experience. So I'm relying on my audience to interpret the value of this, because I can't tell you, other than I can point out how unique it is. I know it's a new processor, and I know it's built in a very similar foundation as the MS-R1 and A1 and A2. So it's a familiar form factor. The price on it, well, you saw the price. It's a very attractive price point on this. But the question is, for me personally, I need Windows on this for me to use it. You may not. And so here we are. Ben Laird said it's a Windows 11 ARM ISO image. Yes. Yeah, it's let me see, what's the download say? What's the extension? Yeah, ISO. Is there something about that you're not expecting? Were you expecting a 7Z image or a Linux image? Gerald Cochran said, Carey, the adapter you pulled out was an NVMe to U.2 drive. I thought U.2 drives had a square connector, not a rectangular one. But again, I have a drive that'll fit in there. We've utilized these enterprise drives before. I have one or two around here. I have one in the MS-R1, if I'm not mistaken, and I've got another spare one here. And we could plug it in here. And we haven't opened this up yet because, quite frankly, there's no sense in me trying to upgrade anything or modify anything if, regardless of that, I can't get Windows 11 on it, for me personally. So I don't know that we'll open this up today. But it looks like it opens up exactly the same way as the MS-R1 and the MS-A1 and A2. And there's an MS-R2 coming out, which has not been released yet. And it's going to be more or less this size over here. So it's grown substantially and also grown in power. Whereas this is the AMD version, the MS-R2 will be the Intel version of this sort of equivalent, if you will. So hopefully we'll get our hands on one of those as well in the future. Dennis says, we got your back, no worries. Thank you, Dennis. David Graham says, I saw for Windows user under OS install. Let's go back and take another look since we're waiting on the download anyway. I do go through this rather quickly when I'm pulling up pages because we're live. When I'm not live, I'm a lot more relaxed. And, you know, I can walk away, take a phone call, and other things that I wouldn't do during a live stream. So sometimes because of the pace of live video, I'm not reading everything. So let me go take another look at that. Get a fresh look at it. That's back under our window capture for, where was that? Did they use the word Windows in here? Let's just do Control F. No, the word Windows doesn't appear anywhere on this page. So I don't know where you saw that. You have to tell me where you saw that. Unless it's on the main page here with operating system support. Android virtual machines, PCIe expansion, ARM education and research. Yeah, well, I certainly see it in those particular areas, which isn't an area I'm in, right? I don't deal with any of that. And it's mentioning ISO because it's a UEFI BIOS. Let's do a Control F and look for the word Windows. Nothing. There's no mention of the word Windows. So I don't know where you saw that. You'd have to share the link with me because I am not seeing it. And yeah, bundled with adapters for U.2 or extra NVMe flexibility. So there you go. That's exactly what that adapter is. U.2. I just remember U.2 connectors being square. But that was probably 10 years ago. Unless I'm confusing it with another connector. It never caught on. For a while, just regular motherboards consumers would buy would have these U.2 plugs next to your SATA plugs. They're funky looking. They didn't look like this. They were square. But maybe that's still U.2. I don't know. I can't remember. It's too much information that's not frequently utilized. So it just kind of goes stale in my brain. Along with the brain itself, I think is getting stale. Let me jump back over to our chat room. David Graham says OS reinstall. Let me jump back over there. Let's take another look. We'll go back over to our window capture. under OS reinstall, how to reinstall OS. And again, I'll do a search for the word Windows. Windows users. Okay, so what this is telling you is to install Linux. If you're a Windows user, you understand? And if you're running Windows to create the system image, then you're going to need to download Balena Enter to create the Linux image in Windows. If you want to create the Linux image in Linux, then you're going to follow these steps. But that doesn't change what this is. They're not saying this is Windows. You understand? You have to use another computer. In theory, if you had no OS, you'd have to use another computer to download this. And if that computer is Windows, how would you do it? Well, you'd have to download this program for Windows that can write that image so you can use that. On the other hand, if you want to create this image from another Linux-based computer, because maybe you're a Linux user and you have several Linux computers, or even maybe this computer works great and you just want to make your image in case you need it in the future, and this has Linux on it, then you're going to follow these steps to make your, so in Windows to make your Linux reinstaller, follow these steps. In Linux to make your Linux reinstaller, follow those steps. I think that's where you were misunderstanding the information. And, you know, look, it's computers, so what do you expect? The engineers that do this stuff could probably, they're not the best educators in the world, right? They speak tech for other techs. They don't necessarily speak text for everybody to understand. And that's where my job comes in, is to explain this. I can interpret this for you. So hopefully I've explained that better. Barry Klein said having a version of Linux on this box makes sense to him. There's no license fee. John Q, Windows user, won't see a real benefit to going to ARM. Users will be more likely to use this feature of the CPU on Linux than they would on Windows. Yeah, those are all valid points. And we're not a Windows-based channel, right? So to ask me to review this is sort of like, how do I do that? I have to get a whole new career and become an expert to review one. I mean, it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It means I'm just not the best person to ask. And Barry Klein mentions another great point. If you want a Windows-based mini computer, there's more than you can shake a stick at. But if you're looking for a good mini PC that's really meant to run Linux, on top of the fact that it's, for the amount of hardware you're getting for the price, it's a solid value. You don't really have a whole lot of options in that space, not compared to Windows. So we've got a very unique product here, but it's also kind of a niche product in that sense. It's not going to be for everybody. I do anticipate we should be able to get Windows on this at some point. Whether or not it's ready yet, I don't know. But if the CPU, you know, just came out, it's like the whole Snapdragon thing with those processors when those came out, and everybody was, you know, talking about how great this is going to be for battery life, and the cost of the laptop is a few $100s less than an Intel or AMD. A lot of benefits to having Windows on that. But also, if you wanted to run Linux on those Snapdragons, better still, because as Barry mentioned, there's no translation that needs to be done. You're working in the same language. Everything runs faster because it's more efficient. When we're translating from Windows, there's a slowness in the translation and the fact that it wasn't really designed to run it in that way, but we can make it work, and the advantage would strictly be financial, where you can get pretty decent amount of power for the money while running Windows and not having to learn Linux. So again, one of the things I really love about Minisforum is the sheer amount of variety they have, from size, features, pricing, upgradability, gaming, workstations, editing, Linux, Windows, bare bones systems versus already equipped. There's a little something for everybody that covers probably the majority, 80% or greater, are all buying the same sort of category. And then you've got gamers and Linux users and other niches that are then making up the other remaining 20%, would be my guess. But if that 20% is enough to sustain a product category, including NAS, that's not for everybody either. But if it sells enough units to make it worthwhile, bring it on. I think having options and choices is great. I don't want to do what everybody else does. I just need to be able to support what everybody else does. At least if I want to continue to pay the rent. That's all. All right. So yeah, those are valid points. And I want to remind you, because we're getting ready to wrap up here, that Minisforum's Black Friday special, or specials that are going on right now, are live on their site. Go to Minisforum. Again, we've got the link in our video notes. Click on the Black Friday 2025, or if you're interested in new arrivals or even refurbished units, that's all here. What I find interesting is the Spotlight sale. I'd like to learn more what that is. Enjoy unbeatable deals on our S1 Max. And oh, I see. So these are deals right now they're highlighting. And I can't express enough just how powerful this S1 Max is. And if you're wondering, we reviewed this. That's this unit right here. Now, Minisforum, you know, they make machines as little as this. The typical 4-inch by 4-inch or 5-inch by 5-inch in various thicknesses. This workstation format, and in like the S90, that, or S70, what is it? An S75? 795? That's more of a mini ITX. So if you could set these all up, you go little to sort of small to medium to large and extra large. They cover the gamut, plus just the motherboards if you want to build your own, plus external GPU docks if you have Oculink, plus keyboards, plus portable monitors, plus that tablet, the 3-in-1 tablet. Like, is there something you're looking for that Minisforum doesn't make? That's some form of a computer. Thunderbolt dock, they make it. That's what impresses me the most. They're not just making a handful of mini PCs. That's what we see from most mini PC manufacturers. They have maybe a half dozen to choose from. They all kind of look alike. And that's not bad. It's also not novel. It's nothing new and exciting. That level of new product introduction that Minisforum introduces on a regular basis, you think they've run out of ideas, right? No. They're still going. That MS-02 that I'm talking about, the MS-02 Ultra, look at this bad boy. Core i9 285HX. Also looks like they offer an Ultra 5 235 version. It's going to be in a similar box as we're seeing here to the unit I've got in front of me, but instead of Intel based, it'll be, you know, the one in front of me is AMD based. Look at this, 192 gigs of ECC RAM and 2 terabytes of storage. Ooh-wee! And if you think that's expensive, try pricing something similar from one of the name brand manufacturers like Dell. And you're going to come back to that and say, that's a hell of a deal. That's easily a $4,000 computer all day. So this is exciting. That's a brand new product. The S1 Max is a fairly new product. It's one of our newer machines from Minisforum. The gaming build, the Atom Man G1 Pro, looks amazing. And then like I said, they have the X1, they have the X1 Lite, the AI X1 Pro, the N5 NAS, the lighter version. Sorry, this is the lighter version. This is the Pro version with a higher end CPU. And then we've got the, you know, don't forget that AberZ line here. We can get a little bit cheaper of a price simply because of it's a lesser known name brand, so there's a lesser known name brand tax on it. The M1, which is Intel based, the MSA2, and let's not confuse the A1, the AIX1 versus the X1 Lite. And you can see that, you know, you run the gamut of price options here, what your budget might be for this stuff. The MSA2, if you're more of an AMD desktop processor fan, but you like that small form factor, got you covered. Ultra series from Intel, got you covered. Just a basic mini PC that doesn't, you know, that you're just like, look, what's a good mini PC that isn't going to break the bank? You know, let's just start over here. Nothing wrong with this unit here. And they have different variations, different configurations. 350, 190 with 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. And, you know, this is nothing to shake a stick at. For most average users, this probably is equally equipped, but much faster than the desktop computer you use now. And it probably costs half or less than what you paid for that computer that you're using now. This is where technology is moving, and it's moving quickly. So keep in mind, if you buy from Minisforum, they do take PayPal, and PayPal does have payment options. So if you don't have the best credit in the world, PayPal's a great way to start building your credit. And they even offer interest-free, like, you know, make 4 payments and you don't pay any interest, but you got to make those payments on time. That helps rebuild your credit and also save you some money when you don't have to wait until you collect the money. But if you already have credit, you've got Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Klarna, which I've never used, Afterpay I've never heard of, Union Pay I've never heard of. Is there any type of payment they won't take? Do they take kidneys? Diners Club, Maestro, Visa Electron, I don't know what that is. And this must be like some, this almost, Cartez, I don't know, that must be in another country. That doesn't look like anything I've seen in America. They do 30-day free returns, lifetime support, and there's no tariffs in the US or Canada. Or at least it's already built into the price. So you know, look, we don't have enough time to go through all the options from Minisforum, but suffice to say that there's a lot more than just mini PCs. Motherboards, docking stations, tablets, monitors, and then there are accessories. So when I tell you why I'm so impressed, they have a Bluetooth speaker and moon LED light, which I've never even seen before, and a Minisforum cup. So I guess if you're a real Minisforum fan and you want to take looks like a spill-proof cup with you on the road that you don't spill it in your car, maybe it's for coffee, I guess. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm sure Mara would tell me. It's basically their version of well, similar to maybe like a Stanley Cup, a bit smaller. The variety of products, the sheer amount of options you have, I just don't, nobody else holds a candle to Minisforum when it comes to this sort of thing. It's like, there's a lot of great companies out there that specialize in just mini PCs, or they specialize in just laptops, or they specialize in just like Linux ARM-based stuff. I love that Minisforum is just all over the map with this for meeting the needs of anybody interested in a computer. They got you here, they got you back, they got great prices, great support, and build quality is great. I don't know what else I can say about them, but I'll tell you what, if Minisforum and I had any opportunity for me to go to work for them, I would take that job. And there's very few companies I say that about. Because to me, there's a big value difference from what I want to do for my customers and what most companies want to do to their customers. Campbell soup. But all I'm saying is, I really appreciate the company values along with the quality of the product, the prices, and variety. All right, so I'm just calling it as I see it. It's truly how I feel, and I'm honored to be working with Minisforum and being able to review so many of their products. And as I mentioned, I have many Minisforum mini PCs in actual clients that I support, that as far as the client is concerned, they're buying from me, right? I'm providing it, they're paying me. So if that product disappoints them, they're disappointed in me. It takes a lot to get me to put my own personal reputation on the line with my customers. This is how I eat. This is how I pay the bills. And I'm not going to be very, what's the word? It's nothing. I just roll the dice and hope, for the best. I really think it through, the long game. What are the risks I'm putting up? What are the benefits? What are the risks to the customer? What are the benefits? It's a pretty fine filter you got to get through to have me stand behind a product this strongly. So I want you to keep that in mind. I'm not an enthusiast just making videos. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but without the liability where I can have my whole life taken from me, essentially be shut down and put out of business, an enthusiast doesn't have that risk. And that's fine. That makes what they do a lot more fun. I enjoy what I do, but there's a serious consequence to it if I don't take it seriously or if I don't respect my customers. If all I'm doing is looking out for Carey, and in the process I'm working over my customers, I probably won't have customers much anymore. So if I'm really looking out for Carey, the way I do that is I look out for the customers. In return, that reflects back on me looking after me. That's the way I see it. Let me go back to the chat room here and see if anybody has any final questions that I can address for you. Dennis wants to know if I've seen any previews of the Steam Cube. So I'm not a gamer. If there are any previews, I haven't seen them, and I probably wouldn't care, to be honest. If you asked me about what was the thing called, I don't even know what it's called, the Stream Box. What did they come out with? Again, I don't earn any money from that. No customers are calling me. Never, ever has any single customer in the history of my company ever called me about a Stream Box. It's never happened. So, well, the home users, enjoy their games and they go to Best Buy or whatever to buy their PlayStations and their Xboxes, they're not generally calling Geek Squad for repairs on those things. So I can't make a living at it, that's all. I don't have anything opposed to it. I own an Xbox. I think the last time I turned it on was 2024. I would love to have the money to sit back and enjoy gaming, but I also enjoy being able to pay the bills, so yeah. Andy says there's no Minisforum t-shirts. No, I don't think I've ever seen a Minisforum t-shirt, now that you mention it. I think the problem with t-shirts in particular is there's so many different sizes and male designs and female designs and color options. It becomes an inventory nightmare. And a lot of times when I've seen companies give away t-shirts, they're always extra large, which I could wear as a skirt. So they're never any good to me. I say, do you have any mediums? They go, oh, medium? But are you 12? Aren't you a computer guy? You're supposed to be big if you're a computer guy. We only have extra larges because that's what our audience wants. Now, be that as it, look, it's not judging. I'm just telling you that's how it is. I don't get too excited when they give out shirts because I know it's not going to be a medium. Nobody ever has mediums. Extra large, that's pretty much the one size they have universally. But everybody needs to drink, right? I understand the thermos. It's not like you're going to need a bigger cup necessarily than anybody else. And it wouldn't fit necessarily in your cup holder of your car if you were going to take it somewhere if it were giant. So I think it's a bit more universal for appeal to pick items that don't have so many individual personalizations. And shirts are a nightmare as far as inventory, colors, sizing, and male and female cuts go. It's a lot of inventory, it's a lot of money. And how do you guess? How many smalls do we need? How many mediums? How many larges, extra larges, double XL, triple XL? How many different colors? And you got to pay for all that up front. And if you end up, giving them away at a show like CES, I guarantee you're going to have shirts left over that just universally, there just weren't as many people wanting let's say a female small. So now you got to box all this stuff up and haul it back out again, and the cost keeps adding up and adding up. So I understand why shirts aren't offered. Ask me how I know. Barry Klein said an extra large shirt for me is a mini skirt. Well, there's an image. Tregon wants to know if I still build computers. I build computers for people who order them. So the best way to watch a build video is to order a build from me. In 2025, let's say 2017, I think we built 30 machines. In let's say 2017, 2018, we probably built again about 30 machines. 2019, we were probably on track, and then the pandemic hit shortly thereafter, and that's when everything stopped. And a lot of things that people wanted during the pandemic were webcams, and webcams were sold out. We couldn't even get them. Once the pandemic kind of ran its course and things started to return to normal, we had maybe 5 or 6, maybe 8 PC builds in 2022, 2023. And then I think we did like 6 builds in 2024. I think we've done 2 or 3 builds in 2025. You can see what's trending, right? You can see this is all going away. So the people that like to watch it are great, but the people who want to watch it are fading out. They've changed their interest. I don't know where they went, and I don't know what their interest changed to. But across YouTube as a platform, if you look at any PC builders that are still doing it, the public interest in this is fading back out. Now, there will always be public interest in PC building, but the way it's trending is it looks to me, the general public is moved on. And it's reverting back to being a hobbyist activity, which is how it started for me back in the 1980s. It looks like, just like there's still ham radio operators out there, it is not the big 1970s peak of interest that it once was. But there will always be people that are interested in it. The problem is it enough to sustain a YouTube channel? Is there enough viewers? Is there enough interest? And at some point, if there isn't enough to sustain the channel, then we have to pivot and find out what people want to watch. If it's something that I do or I'm willing to do, that's great. If it's something I'm not willing to do, or it's a subject matter that I don't know anything about, then we just shut it down because it's run its course and it's no longer sustainable. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing in my private life what I do. It's just the scale of YouTube is so big. If spending hours multiple days a week making videos is taking me away from doing actual work I get paid by the hour to do, and I can't pay the bills at the end of the month, I don't know what choice I have. So all those old videos and all those old builds that we've done back from 2009 to today, they're still there in our archive, which you'd have to be a member to see the archive. And being a member is what's supporting us now. Advertising no longer supports us here. And that's why you'll see a lot of channels that used to do builds, they're just gone now. You just can't make ends meet. Try it yourself. Let me know how it works. With RAM prices, pretty much, you got to combine the shortage of graphics cards with the cryptocurrency mining, the supply chain issues of getting parts during the pandemic. Now with RAM and SSD prices skyrocketing, due to supply shortages, due to the AI companies hoarding them right now. They can't get enough. We continue to get one hit after another in this industry. We've never recovered. Since the crypto mining craze and the shortage of GPUs, we also have a shortage of GPUs due to AI as well. We've never recovered from it. And I understand that the general public, after 6 years of this, has said, we've given up. It's after 6 years, the average person is like, find something else. Just get an Xbox, just get a PlayStation, find something else. Get a Steam box, whatever. I get it. It's not a mystery why it's happening. What is a mystery to me is where did they go? Where did all these people go? But I understand why they left, for sure. I totally get it. But my business, my real life business hasn't changed. Business demands are the same today as they were 5 years ago. Businesses still need ongoing support. Businesses still need new machines. Businesses don't generally care about GPUs. They don't generally care about the price of RAM. They don't care. We need a computer. We need to get work done. We're losing money. The longer it takes to get that computer, the more money we lose. So if RAM went from $150 to $300 for 32 gigs of DDR5, it's nothing for them. And that's the way it's always been. So for me, as somebody working in the industry hasn't changed, not the business side. But the consumer side has always been fickle since any subject matter. Consumers get into something for a while, and then they lose interest and they move on to the next thing. So sadly, it appears that gaming PCs and computer builds will go back to the niche it once was, similar to what it was for me back in 2009, 2010, where most people weren't looking for videos on how to build a computer back then. And it looks like we're coming back around to that again. And that's probably where it'll stay. So, and I just have to be prepared for it. And I tend to, that might sound negative or anything, but I tend to try and be realistic and impartial about it. Like, this is the normal course of things. We don't know when it's going to happen, but when you start seeing the early warning signs, you might say, I long for the days back when cars didn't have such bright headlights. Well, they do, What are you going to do about it? Those old headlights are gone. We don't use them anymore. And yeah, you could go back and buy an old car, but it's not what the general population is doing. So we learn to live with it, we adapt, and we move on, and we progress and evolve. And a lot of people, they long for the yesteryear, the way things used to be. That's the same for every human that's ever existed on this planet. The older you get, it seems like it's like a universal attitude that things used to be better when we were younger. I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to say things are great today. They're not bad. They're better. And we have to adapt our minds and evolve our minds. But I would also like to be wrong. I would like for the interest in PC building to come back, but I don't see it happening. There's just too much downside to it. And it was getting really annoying with all of the RGB and nonsense people were wasting money on. And I think the consumers woken up to that and said, this is stupid, which is what I've been saying all along. It's dumb. And I would humor people that wanted that nonsense, but I didn't like it, and I still don't like it today. So now it's gotten to be so expensive that people are like, I can't afford to buy these flashing lights. Well, that's what I've been saying this whole time. Why would you put money into a flashing light? I don't get it. So in any event, there's certain industry trends, and times change, but that's why we have the archive. But I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your kind words, and I hope you'll stick with us as we continue to evolve along with the products and the technology and keep you up to date. Ham radio is not dead. It's not dead, no. But finding ham radio operators today is going to be more of a niche. It's a specialty. You'll have clubs and groups of like-minded individuals. That's what I'm saying. When I had my first computer, there were computer owners clubs that would meet like once a month at somebody's house, and there might be 20, 30 people there in the local area, all that, you know, we all have Ataris or we all have Commodores. And it looks like we're getting back to that again. Maybe not, but if the majority of the population have moved on to just using their smartphone now instead of a computer, you know, a proper desktop computer, then the people having desktop computers is a number that's getting smaller. I don't think ham radio is ever going to become popular where the masses are now rushing to the stores and selling out all the ham radios. If it happens, I mean, it's possible. I think it ship sailed. I don't think there's a lot of young people that have any interest in it. I think most people interested in ham radios are older people that were around during ham radio heyday. There's always exceptions, but I'm talking if you just took a survey of the average age of a ham radio operator today, they're probably older adults. And as those older adults die off and another generation becomes older adults, then that number's going to dwindle down to fewer ham radio operators. There'll always be an interest in it. There'll always be those enthusiasts, but that is a number that continually shrinks, unfortunately. At least that's the perception I have. And this is with all things. There's probably some people around that still know how to use a Morse code tapping machine. They're few and far between, but I'm sure you could find one to buy one if you wanted one. But I don't think everybody's going to be wanting to buy one of those anytime soon. They sort of had their heyday, you know, ticker tape and all that other stuff. There's probably someone or some group of enthusiasts somewhere restoring them. But as far as like being a viable thing that the general public has interest in, that ship long ago sailed. It's all but forgotten. And most everything that we deal with in our lives at some point will become that. People driving cars, maybe in our lifetimes, we're going to see more autonomous cars on the road than people driving cars. And quite frankly, you know, a car is a terrible investment. You spend all this money for something you may only spend a couple hours a day in. Whereas an autonomous car can run all day long. Just come pick you up and drop you off. You don't need a driver. Probably going to be fewer car accidents the more autonomous cars are on the road. You don't have an awkward conversation with a driver like in a traditional taxi. And the investor of that autonomous car is going to earn back their money versus an individual that buys a car with the maintenance and insurance and registration. All those expenses end up making a vehicle one of the worst things. The return on investment on a car is terrible for most of us. But if you could just continually run the life out of that car, have it always running and doing things, that'd be a pretty good investment, especially if it was making you money. So that day's coming. In fact, when I drive around the streets of Phoenix and Tempe, I see those Waymos everywhere. Just these cars that have no driver. And you can tell because they have the spinning things all over them. And now Tesla's got permission to start their autonomous cars in Phoenix. They're already using some robo-taxis in Las Vegas. They're really funky looking square boxes. No driver. It's a bench seat on each side. Seats, I think 4 people, maybe 6 people. You squeeze in there, I don't know. And it just quietly takes you off. It's all electric. And that's going to be the normal. And people driving, those are going to be the enthusiasts. You watch. That's what's coming. Tragon says, it's not much, but I just want to say thank you for all the amazing content and giving young me the courage to get into the hobby and teaching me the better way to go about it. Thank you, sir. Well, I'm glad you appreciate the effort I put in. Not everybody does. I'm glad it inspired you or helped you and set you on the path. And, you know, look, if it led you to a career or will lead you to a career, it's very rewarding for me to hear people find their calling. If I was a hand in guidance, that's very rewarding. So thank you for letting me know. That means a lot to me. Andy said, I asked my granddaughter if she had a computer. She says, no, she has a smartphone. Yeah. Different priorities. Andy says, now the CB radio, that was another thing. Yeah, back in the 70s again with the Citizens Band radios, yeah. That was pretty trendy for a while there. Dennis says there's a lot of people these days who've never heard about ham radio or know what it is. There's also a lot of people these days who can't tell you the name of the Vice President of the United States. You ask them the capital city of a state, and you're talking, they go under the college and they start asking kids what were basic things they taught us, and these kids don't know. Like, they have to look it up on their phone. And as long as they have their phone, their attitude is, why would I need to know? And it's always going to be somebody older that says, well, what if you don't have a phone? And they're going to look at you like, in what world do you live in where that's even a possibility? And so there's a major communication disconnect there, because all their lives, and some of these kids, they've had a smartphone their whole life. In the same way that you've had electricity, and I said, well, what if you didn't have electricity? What are you going to do? You'd look at me like I'm a nutcase. Yeah, sure, the power might go out for a day or two or something at the worst. What are the odds of that happening? It's not like electricity is just going away. It's here. It's not going anywhere, old man. Don't worry about it. So I see where the kids are coming from. As long as I got the phone, why should I bother learning any of this stuff? It's completely a waste of my time. Okay. I see where they're coming from, and if I was their age, I'd probably think the same thing. Dante Charles says, thank you for all you do. Thank you, Dante. And he says his granddaughter may get a Mini for Christmas. It doesn't mean she's going to use it. It may be like giving her socks or underwear. Like, gee, thanks. Or for Father's Day, you get a tie, kind of a thing. Oh boy, a tie, just what I needed. Be careful. What you want may not be what she wants. Barry Klein said she could use the mini PC to lean her cell phone against. It's funny because it's true. Yeah, they might just use that as a little stand to watch their videos. You know, for a lot of kids, it's like saying, hey, I bought you a shovel. What's wrong with you? I don't want to go, look, it's a shovel. It makes digging dirt a lot easier. Why do I want to dig dirt? What's wrong with you? Look at how fancy the shovel is. Look how easy it is. That's work. You gave me a gift so I could work. So like giving them a mini PC is a lot more work. That's often how it's seen. Why would you do this to me? What did I do to you? I'm not going to work. That's your gift? You gave me a shovel. Thanks. Just be prepared. They'll probably say thank you, and then they'll never talk about it, and you'll never see it because they're not using it. But I'd like to be wrong. It would be amazing if you gave her a mini PC and then she like got won over by it, but I doubt it. Kids want to have it everywhere they go, right? They don't want just something at home. You might as well give her a landline telephone she can hang on the wall. They want to be able to take it with them. That way, no matter where they go, they're always in the same place. It's a twisted mentality. But so long as they've got their smartphone, you can say, look, kids, we're in Paris. And they're like, oh, yeah, I see pictures of the Eiffel Tower here. Look, kids, it's the Colosseum. We're in Rome. And they're in Fortnite. They haven't moved. They're still in the same place in Fortnite. They've traveled thousands of miles physically, but mentally, they're still in the same place. And so long as they've got this with them, they can be anywhere they want to be in here. And what's happening out here is just your location for where you really want to be, which is in here. So if this is a fixed location, like a mini PC or a landline telephone mounted on the wall, that's, for a younger generation, very unappealing. It's like, here, I bought you a leash. That's often how it's seen. So you want to tie me up and prevent me from leaving the house. But they can leave the house and go all over the world without leaving the house. And you can go all over the world and still not leave the house. In other words, you could be in another part of the world, but still be in the same place on your phone. You haven't moved in here. So we have a generation that sees the world through a phone that they take with them everywhere they go. They're not tied down by a computer, a mini PC or otherwise. Think about it. Shamim Kajviras joins us from Sweden, saying hello. Andy said that she had expressed interest in having a mini PC. Okay, well, that changes things. And my granddaughter isn't a kid anymore. Yeah, well, that, depending on how old your granddaughter is, right? Depending on if she grew up with phones. I'm just trying to prepare you for the typical reaction of the younger generation. But, you know, I don't know how old your granddaughter is. You didn't mention it. So when we talk about leaving that information out of your comment, my default is that you're talking about kids, like kids under 20, 25 or less, I'd say. So if your granddaughter's 25 years old or younger, this is what I'm seeing, at least here in America. I can't speak for, obviously, for other countries, but it seems pretty universal worldwide. Andy says, I'm probably the only person I know that doesn't carry a cell phone. I mean, my cell phone gets me out of so much trouble when I'm away from home, trying to find a location of something, pulling up the GPS, listening to music while I'm in the car instead of listening to the commercial player they call a radio, being able to play the songs I want to hear, being able to call somebody and say I'm running late, being able to call somebody and say I'm turned around, can you guide me in? I think I'm close. Being able to take a customer call. I might be on the road in a long trip. Customer that's paying me on a retainer needs to be able to reach me. The very least I can do is answer the phone. I don't know how I could leave the house without a phone now. I see something, I go, oh, I wish I had a picture of that. Oh, wait, I can take a picture of it now. SpaceX rocket in the sky. Let me turn my video on. I didn't know SpaceX was going to be visible from Phoenix. Let me record that. In a moment's notice, I have everything I need right here. If there's a car accident or a breakdown, right here. I don't have to rely on strangers for help. So I don't see not having a smartphone as a good thing unless you never leave the house. All right, guys. Any other questions? You have questions about Minisforum? Do you have questions about tech in general? Anything I can answer for you? We're going to be wrapping it up here for our show. I want to thank Minisforum again for all of their cooperation in these last few years working with us. We're very honored, and I say that extraordinarily sincerely, that I feel very honored that Minisforum trusts us with product reviews, allows us to do our reviews live. They have that much confidence in the product. They appreciate the uniqueness of the channel, and they support us here by continually giving us things that we can review that we don't have to go out and buy. Now, they don't give us everything. We have gone out and bought a few that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to get. And that's fair's fair, right? They're supporting us. We want to support them back. And when it comes to this holiday season, if you're looking for a quality computer and you want a variety of things to choose from and a variety of price points, but you want to make sure you get something good regarding quality and support, there's always this machine from this company or that machine from the other company, or there's all this variety from this one company. So I want you to keep that in mind. There's really no other manufacturer I'm aware of that does what Minisforum does with the variety They kind of stand alone in that. And most people never heard of them. Like if you just went up to an average person and said, what do you think of Minisforum? They go, what's that? Hopefully one day they'll earn a household name brand awareness. But so far as where we're at today, they don't have that brand name sales price tax. You know, go price a Sony television compared to a lesser known brand. That's the Sony tax. That's all I'm trying to say. When Sony first started out, they couldn't charge top dollar when nobody knew who they were. You have to earn that in time. So if you get in early and you recognize a great manufacturer, you realize what a value they are. And then when they become really, really big and popular, the value proposition starts to, it becomes less appealing. So this is the time, right? This is this company is growing and getting bigger every year. And to be there in its earlier days and taking advantage of how great the prices are before everything blew up and got so well known that people are buying it hand over fist. You'll long for these days, I'm telling you from experience. Poorly Boy wants to know, can you tell me how to put a Windows 11 home PC on your network? I saw this on a pro machine, but it doesn't work on a home PC. There is a video that does walk through a particular networking issue. And what's frustrating to me as a content creator is sometimes there are updates to a video, but I can't go back and remake the video. I'd have to take the video down and publish a whole new video and start all over again. But what I can do is I can put notes in the video description, and I can always update and change those notes. And it feels like nobody reads the video notes. It's like they don't know they're there. It never occurs to them to look. They don't know what a video note is. They don't know how YouTube works. And if you don't know how YouTube works, I don't know how I'm going to explain Windows networking to you. So there's a level of frustration I have where I've already explained everything you're asking in the video notes of the video you watched. And much like everybody else who asked that question, I keep repeating myself, read the video notes, read the video notes, read the video notes. I don't know what else I can do, unfortunately. The information's there and people don't see it. So that's a particular networking issue. But Windows networking, we can spend here and talk for 3 hours over network card drivers, cables, switches and routers, configurations and Windows services, network and file discovery services, workgroup names, checking IP addresses and what kind of equipment you're using if you've got a managed switch, like a smart switch versus say just a router. And all of this takes into account how to solve the problem you're having. I think what people want to do is they want to take the car to the dealer and they want to say, can you fix my car? And it's like, well, I need to know what make, what year, what model of car. Let's start there. So before you ask any technical questions of anybody ever, you need to tell that person what you have. I have a laptop. I have a mini PC. Okay, great. How old is it? It's about 3 years old. Great. Okay, so what's the problem? Okay, so the problem I'm having is I can't get networking to work. What does that mean, I can't get networking to work? My car doesn't work. What does that mean? What doesn't work? You need to explain what it is you're attempting to do and what the problem is, because networking could have 1,000 different problems. So it's up to me now to just try and figure it out. You need to share that information. You need to volunteer it right out of the gate, no matter who you're asking for help, because you're asking something that has 1 million different variables. So you go, okay, it's this model, it's this make, it's this old. This is a brand new problem, I never had it before, or this is a new problem that only happened since the last Windows update or in the last few months. And when I click on this, this thing happens. That's what I want to know how to fix. At that point, we can take a 3 or 4 hour video and whittle it down to about 10 minutes for you. But if you're not willing, because that's too much work, to give me the information, I'm not willing to spend 3 or 4 hours to explain 1,000 different things when you only need to know one of those things. And now you have to filter through all those. It's a huge waste of both of our time. So while I appreciate your question, What I would appreciate more is if you can be very specific with your question, and I can give you a very specific answer. But if the question is very vague, then my response is equally as vague as the question, because I don't know what else I can do with it. But with regards to the very specific video you've mentioned over a very specific Windows networking problem, that doesn't fix all networking problems. That's a fix for a particular problem which you've not identified you're having. It may not apply to you. And if it does apply to you, it's explained in the video notes. See the problem that I'm running into, like going in circles. So if you want that kind of help, probably best to ask in our forums at CareyHolzman.boards.net, because that way we can ask you these questions. And also the community can get involved and help you as well. When we're in a live video and we're focusing on one particular person for a long period of time, it's basically alienating the rest of the audience. So if it's a quick answer during a live video, that's wonderful. If it's something I can get to within a couple minutes and I got a little research, that's fine too. But if we have to start from the beginning and go through all this rigmarole, please do what we ask. And that is either email us or use our forums at CareyHolzman.boards.net. All the information's in the video notes, once again, in the video description, for how to get the help you're looking for. And, you know, some problems, they just take a lot more time and research. It's not practical to do it during a live video, unless it's something we're already familiar with, right? It's got to be something we can quickly and help the next person. In the forums, we got all day. All right. We do want to help you, but you got to help us to help you. Sound like Tom Cruise. Help me, help you. Barry Klein said, if I had a use for it, that MS-R1 is attractive to me, but at this moment I am flush with PCs. Oh, and he says the MS-A2, not the R1. Whichever one was displayed today. Well, we've had a bunch on display today, but we're focused on reviewing the R1 today. And you seem like someone very comfortable with Linux. I would predict that the R1 would be appealing for somebody who's familiar with Linux and comfortable with ARM processors. Yeah, versus the A2, which is the AMD. But I could also see the AMD, that MSA2 being appealing to you as well. He said, this is an example of Carey acquisition syndrome. Fortunately, I've been going to the CASA, the Carey Acquisition Syndrome Anonymous meetings regularly. They have meetings now? Now we do have reviews of the S1 Max, the X1 Pro, the MS-R1 that I just put back. This is the MSA2. We've already done these reviews. They're here on the channel. We keep all the public videos up for 12 months. After 12 months, they fall into our archive, and that's where they become access only to members. In order for us to encourage membership so we can keep going without having to find sponsorship and make commercials for you guys, I don't want to do that for a living. I don't want to be a game show host. I'm just making the YouTube channel as an extension of my real world business, because there's just not enough YouTube channels in general on any subject coming from real businesses. I'd say you're more likely going to find good car advice from a real mechanic on YouTube than you're going to find real good tech advice from a real tech on YouTube. And so I'm just trying to counter the ubiquity of information that comes from enthusiasts, so the viewers have an option to say, okay, I'm more aligned to the enthusiast, or I'm more in line to the person that's held accountable, who's getting paid by somebody. Because there's not enough, in my opinion, here on YouTube that comes from accountable, held liable people giving off computer advice with no consequence. And oftentimes they don't know what they're talking about. And from my perspective, I watch some of the stuff and I immediately tell YouTube, don't recommend that channel to me anymore. Because I already know if that's the kind of content that person makes, they clearly don't do this for a living. And if they do, they won't be doing it long. And I'm constantly telling, because YouTube will say, well, you saw these computer videos, I'll recommend these other ones. But I'll tell you what, when I find somebody like Jake's Tech, Cyber CPU, Ask Your Computer Guy, Doug Betts, Mike's unboxing reviews and how to. Like I can, on two hands, I can name off the top of my head the actual working text. You can tell from the quality of the information. And there's some pretty good enthusiasts out there too. But again, without the liability, without any consequence, to me, sometimes they cross a line. They'll say something because they can. I can't say it because there could be legal consequences. Like if I said that to a paying customer and gave them bad advice that caused their computer to crash and their business to go down, I'm accountable for that. But if I do that on YouTube, that's your problem. I don't treat YouTube differently than I treat my real world clients. So I'm just trying to put content out that's different from the mass amounts of content that exists today on YouTube, which is primarily all enthusiasts and primarily watched by enthusiasts. But if you're truly a real enthusiast, I would think you would love to do this for a living. And if so, the information I'm providing to you is much harder to find when it comes to liability and responsibility and the consequences that come with getting somebody else's money to do a service for them, right? And the same would be true with a mechanic or a doctor. Somebody might give out financial advice on YouTube and you could lose your shirt and there's no legal recourse for you. But if somebody is a genuine financial advisor and they did that, you could sue them. You could hold them accountable. To each their own. Shamin Kejviras renews membership, now a member for 30 months. Hello, Carey. Thank you again for all the content, for keeping us updated with the computer world, and for all of your advice. I'm happy to continue being a member of this community. I wish all a happy weekend. Thank you, Shamin, and thank you for being a member here for 30 months now. That's amazing. We love having you here. Rip City Raider just became a supporter. Although it shows they've been a supporter over 2 years. So they must have let it lapse and come back again. YouTube's membership system is really funky. So welcome back, Rip City Raider. Did we finish downloading Windows for ARM? Oh, I'm sure that finished downloading, but we're out of time today as far as like making the image and then installing it and then trying to figure out what's going to happen. I'm going to go under the assumption that in the chat room, they are correct that the processor's too new to be supported by Windows. I suspect that's probably true. And I don't think this is ready for Windows yet. There's a potential there. I think we're too early on it. I don't think putting Windows on this is going to work. And the reason I say that is the Minisforum documentation doesn't mention Windows at all. And I'm sure there's a reason for that. It's probably because it doesn't work yet. But this model just came out. Give it some time. We're going to revisit this when we know we can put Windows 11 on it. I'm going to talk with the folks over at Minisforum, find out what the status is, make sure to verify that I'm correct, that we do need to wait, and let them know, please let me know when this is Windows 11 ready, and we'll bring it back out. We're going to just put it back in the box. We'll set it aside, and that'll be future content for us whenever that happens. I think it's inevitable. We're just so early with this unit. I truly believe Windows isn't going to work on this. So that's why I started that download, and as we were talking in the chat room, I think the chat room's correct. I think that it's just not going to be compatible yet. Otherwise, Minisforum would have mentioned it on the documentation, and this unit's only been out like 2 weeks. So. Content for another day. All right, guys. Well, thank you to Mara, as always, our channel administrator. She does our thumbnails, and what a thumbnail today, right? She does our video descriptions, all the links and information of everything we talked about. We'll give a shout out and acknowledgement to our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs. If you're looking for a Windows or Office license key and you don't want to gamble with it, you want to get a legal, legit license key with 6 months of free support guaranteed to work, use the links in our video. Use the coupon code CAREY if you want to take 25% off. or don't use the coupon code if you want to pay full price. It doesn't make a difference to me. I am assuming you'll want to take 25% off, but maybe you don't want to. Thanks again to Thomas Krukella for a very generous contribution. Thanks again to Mark Gaines and Buster out there, and all of our members for renewing. Rip City Raider, now it says you've been a member 32 months. That's fantastic. Thank you. It says thanks for all the great community. Agreed. Absolutely. This channel would be a shell without our community. Each and every one of you, green or white or blue, the community here is amazing. And we can't thank you enough for making it amazing. So again, links for VIP-URCD keys in our video notes. Thank you to Minisforum, as always, for their continued support. And I really appreciate their nonstop innovation. I can't wait to see what's next, as they never really tell you what's coming. And just all of a sudden, here's a NAS. I didn't even know they were working on a NAS. You know, it's almost darn near ready to sell by the time they show it at some kind of a convention. Like, it's damn near a finished product. No idea that was being worked on. Same with their portable monitors and their keyboards. It's just all of a sudden it shows up. I had no idea this was coming. So with that in mind, I now know to expect the unexpected, and I know more unexpected is coming from Minisforum, and I always look forward to it. So a super shout out and a thank you to them, and to all of you, especially our members, for keeping us afloat here. And if you're new here, welcome in, and we hope you'll come back and see us again soon. We'll be back, I believe we're back on Sunday. I'm not positive yet. We are always back on Mondays because that's our members only videos. Those videos are never ever made public. They are strictly for our members. We hope you'll join us as a member on our members only videos. And we always do a video on Friday. Those 2 days are set in stone. Friday's public, Monday is members only. With regards to the rest of the days of the week, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the industry, depending on what's going on in my line of work. If I have something I can show you, I'll show you. If I have nothing to repair, nothing to build, and nothing new to review, I understand there's another update on the Nano KVM, and so I'm all about those KVMs right now. I'm all about remote access to other computers without any software using a browser. I just can't believe how amazing the Nano KVM space is becoming. I'm super excited about it. If anything, nothing new in networking, nothing new, outside of some new stuff from Minisforum, nothing new on the computer front. Nothing new from AMD, nothing new from Intel, nothing new in storage or RAM that's anything good. It's all going the other way. So what I'm looking forward to are the variety of KVMs and expanding awareness on how you can have remote access to any computer you want with no subscription fee and no software. Doesn't that sound amazing? Because it's made a huge difference in my job and what I do. So I've got a variety of KVMs that I need to go back and revisit and look for updates. And if you're not aware of what these things do, that's probably why you don't own one. I think most people would say, wow, I could really use this. I didn't know this was a thing. Remote access is great when you're in Windows and you can use instant house call or something. But what about when you're not in Windows? And what if you want full access to the BIOS and you want to be able to pretty much be sitting at the computer and you don't have any software to install and you don't have any software to buy? You just plug this box in and you're good to go for life. That's why I'm so excited about them. And they're getting more and more capable, faster, physically smaller, and less expensive for what you get for the money. So maybe on Sunday, maybe we'll revisit KVMs. And then I think the laptop diagnostic will be Monday on members only. So I think that's what we've got coming up. In the meantime, the Black Friday sale at Minisforum is good until it looks like the end of the month. I strongly recommend you take advantage of it if you're in the market. I think we're going to see some increasing prices in 2026. Again, from everything I've read, SSD and RAM prices will continue to rise. There's no sign of that ending yet. So if you don't think it's a good price today, wait till next month, wait till 2026 January, and then tell me if you still think what you think of the prices we're talking about today. Because if the cost of RAM and storage goes up, what choice do all the manufacturers have but to raise their prices for their added expense? We have no control over it. So just want you to be prepared. If you need any help with anything, you're welcome to email us. Our email address here on the screen, or visit us at our forums. That's CareyHolzman.boards.net. You can leave a message there that the community can, if they choose to, integrate with you and communicate with you along with ourselves. We do help each other out here. It's not just me. And it's a great way to build up new friendships, and it's just fun for everybody. So we hope you take advantage of it. You don't have to be a member. We're encouraging the community to support one another, not just me, support one another. And it starts with somebody asking for help. And a lot of people love to give help, myself included. So you're not putting a burden on anybody. It's all volunteer. And it's very rewarding for people to get the help, and it's very rewarding for people to give the help. So don't be bashful about it. We'd love to hear from you. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for your support, your contributions. And we look forward to seeing you all, what I think will be Sunday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We hope you'll join us then. Until next time, bye for now.